Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards. FBI, open up!
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1411 of the War News stream, and we have another wild day of news. We've seen U.S. officials prepare for major strikes on Iran's regime very soon. Also, Moscow's been slammed by a new Ukrainian drone attack and missile attack, and also Venezuela is now threatening war against U.S. forces in the region, and we have very big news to cover, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, folks, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, including covering our Sunday night fundraiser tonight, which is for none other than Nova Ukraine. But we have been able to hear of major developments around the entirety of the globe over the course of the day, including significant news that the United States Armed Forces is currently moving a massive amount of equipment from the United States of America in the form of C-17 Globemasters and into the area of CENTCOM's Area of Responsibility. We understand that at the moment this appears to be a significant buildup for military operations against the Islamic Republic of Iran in the midst of the ongoing revolution that is happening inside of their country. Meanwhile, the internal situation within the Islamic Republic of Iran is about a lot worse than the external situation. We have been able to see that the Islamic Republic of Iran's government has been heavily destabilized by the ongoing revolutions, and a large amount of the revolutionaries throughout the country are now armed and are engaging in firefights with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the internal security services and police of the Islamic Republic of Iran. This has led to a situation so bad that word is emerging that the Iranian government is already planning on jumping ship, and Ali Khamenei is planning on fleeing to the Russian Federation and living in exile in Moscow if the revolution continues to worsen in its severity. Meanwhile, the Israelis are also stating that they have now approved a new operation to start striking the Islamic Republic of Iran, although the Islamic Republic of Iran may not even exist by the end of this week or the next several weeks from now. We've also seen that outside of that, Germany and Greece are currently dealing with significant disruptions to their logistics systems and electrical power grids as all communication systems went out in Greece Greece completely shutting down their airspace, while at the same time, the Federal Republic of Germany is dealing with a significant power outage within the capital of Berlin that's affecting around 80,000 people out of a city with a population of 1.3 million people. Additionally, we've also been able to hear that the state of Venezuela is continuing to threaten the war against the United States of America after the United States of America was able to successfully capture and depose Nicolas Maduro, who was the president of Venezuela. At this moment, the president of Venezuela's duties have been discharged to the vice president officially today, and it does appear that the Venezuelan government is continuing to threaten war against the United States of America and has also openly stated that they will defend their country whatever the cost may be. The United States government doesn't really seem to be taking that too seriously and has stated that if they do not calm down, they're going to get a second bombing. We have additionally heard that the President of the United States has threatened war against the following countries over the course of the day: Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, Greenland, which is a territory of Denmark, and several other regions throughout the world over the course of just literally the past few hours. We have been able to hear official statements by the Danish Prime Minister and also the Governor of Greenland stating that they condemn any attempts by the United States of America to annex Greenland outside of it being a Danish territory. We have also been able to see that additional statements have been made by multiple countries around the region, including Sweden and others, which have also backed the Danes in their territorial sovereignty and their control over the island of Greenland. Outside of that, the Bella 1 has actually been seen and finally spotted somewhere within the Atlantic, right off of the British coast, as the United States has conducted a surveillance flight today over the Bella 1, which is apparently getting close to the Sea of Ireland, or at least incredibly close to the Celtic Sea at this moment. It has completely changed its name en route and is flying the Russian flag at this moment, and appears to be attempting to return back to the Russian Federation after it was run away from the U.S. blockade several days ago. Actually several weeks ago at this point. We also assume, as a result of this, that the United States has completely stopped its chase of the Bella 1, considering that it's quite literally crossed the entirety of the Atlantic at this point and is back inside of Europe. We have also seen the Ukrainian armed forces have conducted significant strikes today against the Russian armed forces and strategic Russian infrastructure throughout the country, as a significant hits were seen within the area of the Lipetsk Oblast, including a thermal power plant that was hit directly. We have also seen that within the area of the city of Moscow, there's been other significant drone attacks over the course of the day, which has led to most flights being grounded and others being diverted out of the Moscow area. Ukrainian forces have continued to inflict significant losses onto the Russian Federation's armed forces over the course of the day and have been able to stop most Russian advances where they are. Additionally, we have been able to hear that the U.S. is now threatening the imposition of tariffs against the Republic of India for its continued actions and attempts to buy Russian oil. The Chinese and the Russians have teamed together to give an official demand that the United States must release Maduro at once, which obviously we are going to give a very resounding response to, which is no. We have also seen that the North Koreans have conducted, according to their reports, the alleged test of 2 hypersonic ballistic missiles. Although what's a little bit interesting about that is that hypersonics usually travel at a fast enough speed, we would generally assume that they're not picked up on radar. The Japanese actually picked them up on radar, which leads us to believe they may be more conventional missiles. But apparently we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, folks. So we have a piece of breaking news coming out right now out of Poland. I'm not sure if the enforcer has mentioned this yet, but there's currently a major airspace closure over the skies of Poland right now in the eastern part of the country. We're being told that the Lublin and Rzeszów airports in eastern Poland are currently closed due to unplanned military activity relating to ensuring state security. So right now we're hearing that NATO F-35s are apparently in the sky right now. We're not sure exactly why this is the case. We do know that there's an ongoing drone and missile attack by the Russians on Ukraine, but we're not aware of any drones or incursions into Polish airspace. So not entirely sure why this is, but there is an active NOTAM right now closing the eastern part of Poland's airspace. So that is something to be watching right now. We are expecting launches from Russian strategic bombers very, very soon, but they have not launched as of right this second. So we are watching that story as it's breaking out in the meantime, in addition to all the other breaking news.
And of course, folks, we are going to be running our fundraiser tonight for Nova Ukraine, which is an absolutely incredible nonprofit that helps to save a great deal of lives inside of Ukraine through their humanitarian work and efforts. And of course, folks, we are going to be making our way into the news tonight, starting with our largest stories first, and then working our way into the smaller ones throughout the night. But really quickly, Matthew, I also have to let you know, I've been trying to get my second monitor to work. If you're putting breaking news in the chat to let me see it, there's a high chance I'm not seeing it. It was very lucky that I saw it that time. So you might want to actually text me that instead, because otherwise I don't think I'll be able to see it most of the show. But with that, we are going to be moving on into our major news of the night, moving us directly into the Islamic Republic of Iran. And we have been able to hear incredibly significant news out of this area, as it does appear that the United States is deploying a significant force at this moment to prepare for an eventual strike against the country. Currently, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been embroiled in an ongoing revolution for around a week and a half at this point, and the Islamic Republic of Iran's government appears to be on the back foot against the revolutionaries, as it seems that they are gaining ground, and not only that, arming themselves against the government, and we're even seeing that government resistance within its internal institutions is beginning to evaporate at this moment, and not really doing all too well, to be entirely honest with y'all. During that time, we did hear that yesterday, a large amount of U.S. flights of C-17 Globemasters have been seen arriving near to the area of the RAF Fairford Air Base. The RAF Fairford Air Base is a somewhat important one, especially for NATO forces, as it is based just north of the English town of Swindon, and is generally used as a launching point for U.S. air operations, either within EUCOM or into AFRICOM and CENTCOM, depending on the situation. We can actually see that based out of RAF Fairford is the 501st Combat Support Wing, which is a specialized unit of the U.S. Air Force that helps to support operations of flying air wings inside of the region. It also allows for this airbase to be used basically as a gas station and a jumping point to be able to move on further into Europe or on into the surrounding regions and continents in that area. It does appear that the large amount of C-17s in this area that did arrive yesterday used the RAF Fairford facilities as a gas station or a gas stop, as we did see over the course of today. A large amount of those very same C-17s then took off and then proceeded immediately into the area of CENTCOM. We can see here a large amount of these C-17s on Flight Radar 24 making their way directly into the Middle East. We also were able to note, interestingly enough, folks, just to point this out, that all of the flight paths of these C-17s that apparently took off from Ramstein Air Base within western Germany and also took off from Fairford apparently had to fly all the way around Israel's airspace, as Israel did not allow us to conduct flights into the Middle East to start basing our forces inside of the area to be able to prepare for a strike against Iran, which is quite interesting considering that the U.S. and Israel both are common enemies, common allies against the Islamic Republic of Iran. It is a little bit odd that they wouldn't allow us to use their airspace. Additionally, we have also been able to see the further information as well, showing us that within the area, there is going to be a larger amount of U.S. forces building up. Larger numbers of flights have still been seen departing the United States of America, particularly that of C-5 Galaxies and C-17 Globemasters, which is heavily indicative of some form of a future air operation akin to the one that we saw during Operation Midnight Hammer. Operation Midnight Hammer actually didn't use a large number of U.S. air forces that were based out of the CENTCOM Area of Responsibility, but one thing that they did do, however, is that they did move in an incredibly large number of forces into the area, including ground air defense forces, ground security forces, and also air forces in incredibly large numbers with ordnance to support them. That is an incredibly large amount of supplies that has to be moved, and that usually has to be moved by some sort of strategic airlift capability. This is why you usually see, like during the lead up to Operation Midnight Hammer, that when the U.S. is getting involved in any form of a future operation, you will start to see incredibly large supply movements or cargo movements by these C-17s and C-5 Galaxies to prepare the area for the arrival of other U.S. combatant forces, including air wings and squadrons that would be involved in actual strikes or actions over the skies of the Islamic Republic of Iran. A lot of people have been thinking about this situation today and the significant buildup that we've been seeing just on Flight Radar 24 of all of the C-17s flying into the Middle East and into CENTCOM's Area of Responsibility today, and a lot of people are wondering what in the world is going to be happening here next. Are strikes going to be coming within days or weeks? Is the Ayatollah going to flee and the revolution will be successful before the U.S. can even strike? Or is it just going to be the Israelis conducting the strike and the U.S. is generally just trying to stretch its legs and conduct a whole bunch of supply flights, really just for the appearance of it? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so we have seen a very large number of U.S. Air Force assets heading to the Middle East. As we speak, even right this second, they're still heading that way. And this is amid threats toward Iran. We've heard the U.S. president say that if Iran does not stop killing the protesters, then they're going to get hit harder than ever. I think that was close to his words right there, something like that. He said they're going to hit Iran extremely, extremely hard if they did not stop killing protesters. So what is happening now? Iran is still shooting protesters in large numbers. So now we're seeing this massive deployment. I think it's pretty clear, but it looks like 55% said Iran will be struck in days or weeks, while 29% said Ayatollah flees the country first and the government collapses, and 6% said Israel will be the only ones conducting the strikes and the U.S. is simply showing up for moral support and also maybe some defensive actions. But I would say I'm taking the president at his word on this one. I believe that they will strike Iran probably in days, if not a week or so. It's going to happen pretty fast. And once again, they have to get the assets into place first. They can't just do this on a whim. They have to prepare for it. But I think this is going to be carried out because really there's no reason for the U.S. not to carry it out. We've also heard that Israel just approved some sort of military action against Iran. We're not told exactly what it's going to look like, but I would imagine it's probably in conjunction with the U.S. Air Force in striking the Iranian regime. So whether or not that's a smart idea in the middle of a revolution, we'll have to wait and see, but I think it's in the cards. So I'm with the 56%. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that Iran is probably going to be struck within several weeks. U.S. force movements usually are, especially at this scale, are incredibly large and therefore laborious to coordinate. So for that reason, we'll most likely have to see that a large amount of time is given to get these forces into area and generally shape up the plan that will be implemented against the Islamic Republic of Iran and make sure that all of the active moving parts, as far as the units and aircraft involved, will understand their role, what they're supposed to be doing, and how it's going to go down. Those sorts of operations generally are at least given a broad framework to work off of that is kind of applied in that situation, because the U.S. has a specific department within most branches, and specifically within the Department of Defense, that game plans out hypothetical and highly likely war game scenarios, so that way if something along those lines happens, we generally have already planned out some of the broader details or some of the broader strokes of the painting that will be involved in the military operation that we'll conduct. Then after that, we give that war plan to the CENTCOM commander, and then the CENTCOM commander uses that to then shape up the exact situation as we're seeing it right now according to intelligence and military reconnaissance, and then to conduct strikes from there, and to also get everyone on the same page as to what they're doing, disseminate that all the way down to the lowest levels of what they need to know, and then hear from the bottom all the way up to top that everyone understands their plan, what they're going to be doing, and they're ready to go. And then once all of that's achieved, we'll then see strikes. That usually does take weeks, so I would say that it's not going to be happening literally within the next 3 days or within the next week. It would be highly unlikely, not out of the question, but highly unlikely if that was to happen, but it most likely would be within the next several weeks. I would say give it maybe 2 to 3 weeks, not to say 2 weeks is the ongoing joke, but quite literally 2 to 3 weeks, and that most likely would be the time frame that these strikes are conducted in. So Iran kind of has a clock over its head right now of impending doom as to where either the revolutionaries are going to get them or the U.S. might get them. It might be both at the same time. The Israelis.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule out the revolutionaries getting him first, actually, because this has been going on for how long now? What, about 8 or 9 days in Tehran at least? How long has this been going on? I can't even remember the exact time frame.
About 10 days, from what I would remember.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting worse every day. The riots are not de-escalating. They're getting worse. And now they're even concentrating in Tehran, which is where the Ayatollah lives. So, I mean, to me, it seems very possible that maybe the Ayatollah might end up fleeing before these strikes even occur. Because, I mean, is the Ayatollah going to withstand U.S. strikes, Israeli strikes, also his own people invading the capital? I mean, that's a lot of stuff stacking up against the regime for them not to simply flee like the cowards they are.
I would have to say there is a pretty decent likelihood they're probably about to flee, because once we get into the internal situation today, folks, there's actually been a lot of leaks out of the Iranian government from what we can tell, and it looks like they're already planning to pack up the offices and move out as soon as possible, as soon as things get worse. And like Matthew's saying, they are getting a lot worse every single day. Additionally, I do have to add in that the Israelis did approve some form of a new military operation. According to the Security Cabinet, they had approved a new military operation against Iran, dubbed Operation Iron Strike. The timing and specific targets have not yet been determined, but apparently some form of a military operation in the form of airstrikes has been confirmed to take place by the Israeli Central Cabinet. This does also mean that the U.S. will probably be coordinating with the Israelis to conduct military action against the Islamic Republic of Iran, although for some odd reason they still won't allow us to fly our aircraft through their airspace to get to the other side, say, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and so on, to be able to help them in bombing our common enemy, which would be the Islamic Republic of Iran. So with that, I hope that does address that internal situation within Israel somewhat well. But getting us on into the domestic situation on the ground in the Islamic Republic of Iran, the revolution has in fact devolved into an even worse form today. And when I say worse, I'm saying that for the existence of the Iranian government. For us over here in the West, this revolution is absolutely incredible. I mean, it's actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting and legwork that the Western world would have had to have done to overthrow the Islamic Republic of Iran's government, and they're generally doing it on their own inside of Iran. So it's actually doing quite well, and to phrase it properly, the revolution has grown stronger overnight, and it appears to be resisting a lot better than it has been in prior days. Moving us on directly into the area of the heaviest resistance that we've seen so far in the city of Elam, we can actually see that there has apparently been clashes against the security forces inside of the central hospital. Here's the clip.
Oh. Who's hiding in the closet?
I don't really know. They kind of seem to be a little unfazed. It looks like they're checking business emails and whatnot. It seems like they're kind of like, whatever's happening outside, it is what it is. But apparently outside in the hall, the police and the revolutionaries are literally in a fist fight as the revolutionaries are taking over the hospital.
Yeah, kind of interesting. They're taking over a hospital of all the places, because we've seen them take over police departments. And also they've taken over, I think, some of the outposts for the IRGC that are around the city. And apparently now trying to take over a hospital. That's kind of a strange move on that one. But yeah, the guy here seems not very fazed by it. Either he's trying to text somebody for help, one or the other, but they're just kind of just letting it happen.
Man, he's in there texting someone going, "Hey, so you want to get pizza tonight?" he's just relaxing, honestly. But we also were able to see additional clips out of Elam as well, showing us that the revolutionaries are well armed, at least within this city at this point.
Nothing like a little bit of chaos.
Oh, nothing like it, really. But they are all actually at the end there. It appears that this guy was actually preparing to aim down the street at whoever that is. We're not sure if that's a police officer or who. But it does appear that the revolutionaries are now well armed, and this appears to be the similar situation in most areas of the country, except for where the areas where the revolution just started, like areas like Tabriz and Tehran, where we haven't really seen a large presence of firepower or arms in the possession of the revolutionaries. But in most other areas where the revolutionaries have had about a week to 10 days to be able to get off the ground and start getting their actions rolling, a lot of them have actually been able to seize firearms from police stations and other IRGC headquarters to be able to arm themselves against the very government that they just stole the weapons from. Moving us on into the very northeastern area of the Islamic Republic of Iran, we have been able to see that Iran internal security services are once again putting down even more pressure on the revolution through armed violence against them. As we were able to see that within this area, there were reports earlier in the day that we weren't able to confirm that apparently security forces were opening fire on the civilians that were a part of the revolution inside of Neyshaber. And we also were able to see that earlier in the day, before those alleged reports came out, they were chanting "Long live the Shah" as a symbol of rebellion against the Iranian government. Meanwhile, further on south and in the middle of the literal desert, some incredibly odd actions were seen today. And I'll, of course, give you all the preceding news to this before we talk about it, but apparently there were reports that missile and air defense exercises had begun by the IRGC throughout the country. Picture and video evidence was provided by Israel War Room on Twitter, showing the streaks of missiles that had been fired, along with actual active rocket motors that were on board the surface-to-air missiles that had been fired earlier during that time. And we also were able to see a little bit of the additional proof of the missile fire right there, as well as a duplicate, just to make sure that if the first one was deleted, we still would have one to show. However, something a little bit more interesting happened within the Maybad Mehriz area of the desert within the Islamic Republic of Iran. There was some sort of reported air activity within this area, and we did not hear of any form of air defense drills happening within this area of Iran, so it may be an unreported air defense drill that was being conducted, because we had heard that all of the air defense drills were being conducted within the western part of the country, which, funnily enough, is in the midst of an ongoing revolution. Oddly enough, this was not reported to be a part of the larger air defense drills, and it appears to be some sort of missiles that were fired, or possibly some aircraft at high altitude traveling at an insanely high rate of speed. We're not really sure which, but here's the clip.
Some very expensive drills in the midst of all this economic chaos they're having.
I would have to agree. I mean, I guess we could count on our lucky stars for not being used against the revolutionaries, although a surface-to-air missile would be kind of hard to use in that form. But it appears that they're getting incredibly concerned that the U.S. and the Israelis are about to come and get them. So they're conducting a significant amount of air defense drills, and we believe that this was a part of it. But this specific area of the country was not reported to have been in the midst of an active air defense drill. So a little bit of interesting activity there, and it appears that other air batteries throughout the country that weren't even a part of the air defense drill are apparently conducting their own drills during the same time as the ones that are far larger happening within the western area of the country. Moving us on into Qom, we also have to get to the huge news of the ongoing revolution within this area. The city of Qom is one that we have actually talked about a decent bit on the channel before during the 12-day war with the Israelis. The reason why we talked about it a whole bunch is because there actually is a uranium enrichment plant within this area of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it's actually just up here. This is the Qom Uranium Enrichment Facility. There were actually two of these that were known of when Operation Midnight Hammer was conducted. The one down in Natanz, the Natanz Uranium Enrichment Plant, and this one right here, which is the Qom Uranium Enrichment Facility. This was actually the one that was hit by the MOPS, which are the massive ordnance penetrators, and we are not really sure how significant the damage was here at this specific facility, but it does appear that it was quite significant, although it doesn't appear to have completely knocked it out. Nevertheless, that's what put Qom on the map here on our news reporting, considering that it is the city that is only about 10 miles away from that facility. More importantly, however, for the Iranians, Qom actually serves as a significant capital, at least spiritually, for their Islamic revolution within the country. And that means that Qom is looked at with a good deal of significance. It appears that the Iranian revolutionaries don't look at it that way, because they actually burned down the, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Husainiya, which is inside of the city, which is an incredibly important religious hall within the city that is considered to be one of the founding buildings or founding sites of the Islamic Revolution that overthrew the country of Persia in 1979. We can actually see the revolutionaries here throwing a Molotov right in the window, and apparently they're going to be sending the thing up in a blaze. We can see them down there in the streets making their way to it. And there they go, throwing one right through the window.
They have no shortage of Molotovs, it seems like. It seems like rocks, stones, and Molotovs. And also, I think I've seen a couple of people with like shovels or something like that they're going around using to basically conduct the revolution, it looks like.
I gotta say, gasoline, you know, folks, they always say that the price of gas in Iran is quite cheap, and they're not wrong. And you can definitely tell because Molotovs appear to be the #1 way that they like to conduct attacks at this point in the generally unarmed areas of the ongoing revolution. Gas, by the way, folks, is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, around 70 cents per gallon inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So, considering that it's insanely cheap, it's not like they make a lot of money in Iran, but it's still insanely cheap. Considering that it's insanely cheap to get a gallon of gas, you can actually get a whole bunch of soda cans or whatnot, or soda bottles, load them up with gasoline, and put a towel on the top, and they've got tons of these Molotovs at literal pennies on the dollar. So it's actually the reason why we're seeing that that's the most common form of weapon that the revolution is currently using, is because it's one of the cheapest and easiest to make. We did see, however, that within the area of Qom, there appeared to be firing in the streets as the government was once again attempting to put down the revolutionaries within this area, especially considering that Qom is considered to be a spiritually significant part of the Islamic Republic of Iran by the current government, considering that the revolution generally had a very strong founding within the city. But here's the clip. You can actually see the police here advancing down the street and firing into the crowd. You know, it really does remind me, Matthew, a lot of what Syria had turned into at the very beginning of the Syrian civil war in the Arab Spring. This is exactly what it looked like back then.
Yeah, it kind of does. It's that same type of chaos. Whenever there's any type of revolution, protest, riots, etc., pretty much anywhere in the Middle East, it always devolves into the same thing. There's always random firing of rifles all over the place. They'll always set everything on fire. I mean, it's the same recipe no matter which place it's happening in. Syria just went completely berserk. Like when they fell into chaos, I think it was even worse than this, I would say personally, but it does have a similar look to it.
Oh, it started off a lot like this, actually. It started off with protests, and then they devolved into riots, and then it generally turned into something along the lines of a revolution as they started to arm themselves, which is kind of where they are right now inside of Iran. And then after that, that's when the nation pretty much devolved into firefights and heavy fighting in every single city all at the same time, which was basically the beginning of the Syrian civil war. But it had the same momentum and start just like this did. But it doesn't really seem like Khamenei has an idea of sticking around like Bashar al-Assad did. Apparently, Khamenei heard that El-Basiri al-Bashar song, and he was like, I actually don't want that garbage being made about me. So he's decided he's not going to stick around long enough to have a shitty SoundCloud put out about him. So apparently, within the central government, they're already preparing to leave, at least at this moment. We have been able to hear that, according to word that's being leaked out of the Iranian government, he may be planning to flee to Moscow if the anti-government unrest intensifies. So basically, the run-of-the-mill sort of an answer here is, if the revolution grows any stronger, he's packing up his bags and he's flying out of the country without a second thought. I gotta say, it's really interesting, folks, for the guy who has led terrorist groups within the area through the IRGC's funding and openly calls for death to America, death to Israel, death to Britain, and so on. The guy will talk about all of this martyrdom and all of this bloodshed, but once he even thinks that it might get close to his neighborhood, he's willing to throw the bags in the private jet and go flying straight out of the country in a moment's notice. I mean, really a revolutionary there. I mean, the revolutions of those fans on the jet engine as they're flying around the country is really the only revolution that he's going to be a part of here within the near future. And additionally, we've also heard that, according to other statements that have been made through leaks from the government that have been cited by the New York Times, it apparently appears that the Iranian regime is within a very significant panic at the moment, and some senior Iranian officials have admitted that the Islamic Republic has been pushed into literal survivor mode at this point, with the government holding emergency late-night meetings to discuss the crisis. And we all know, with Khamenei being almost in his 90s, those late-night meetings are being held at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon and they end around 8 o'clock. So they're not really having a lot of conversation at the moment about how to try and preserve the Islamic Republic. So it appears that the end result is that he might actually just get on a jet and fly on out of the country. And that actually brings us into quite a significant question, Matthew. Is Khamenei about to pack up and fly on out of there? Or is he going to try and stay and continue to put down this ongoing revolution? And what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so is the Ayatollah going to flee if it gets worse? And it looks like 46% said yes, the Ayatollah will flee very soon, likely to Moscow, while 30% said he will leave at the very last moment because he's like a good captain of a ship. He likes to stay with it until the last second. While 16% said no, he will remain in the capital city of Tehran in Iran. And I don't believe for a split second that this guy is going to remain in Tehran. He is not going to martyr himself for the cause. He expects everybody underneath his command to martyr themselves, but he is not as dumb as that. He's actually not that way, and he's a coward. He will run off and do the complete opposite of what he's saying to the people. He will run off and probably flee to Moscow and join the ranks of al-Assad or Bashar al-Assad inside of Moscow. So I don't believe for a second this guy's holding out. So I believe that he will flee very soon. If it looks like the U.S. and Israel are going to strike, which it appears it's imminent at this point, that they're going to strike at some point, he will probably get out before that happens. That's my guess. And he's not going to stick around. So remember, also, by the way, during the 12-day war that Israel conducted with the United States on Iran, there was like everybody got picked off. Like they picked off Mohammed Bagheri, who was a major high-ranking officer in Iran. They picked off a ton of people that were friends with the Ayatollah. So the Ayatollah is one of the few last men standing inside of the country that were there originally. And I think the Ayatollah might know that his time is up. But Enforcer, what say you?
Meanwhile, up in Moscow, let me see what I have here in my card collection. I have a silver tier, somewhat uncommon Assad. Oh, a gold Charizard. Wow, that's really nice. And oh my goodness, a golden Kameni card. We call this in Russia, we don't call this Pokemon, we call this Poketators. You've got to catch them all. And at this point, the Russians are gathering up failed dictators like Easter eggs or Pokemon cards, one or the other. But I would have to be honest with y'all, folks. I don't really think that Kameni is going to be sticking around that long. Kameni is going to pack up and run. I'll be quite certain of that. Middle Eastern dictators, like Assad, and also like Kameni, have a very common tendency to kind of just pack up and leave when things go badly. And I have a feeling that he's probably understanding that there isn't really that much hope to save their country, or at least his government if he wanted to. So they're probably just going to pack up shop and leave to Moscow. And on top of that, it's not like it's a bad stay. I mean, for dictators, it's about as good as it gets. You get to live in a crappy hellhole like you already did. You generally get free food. You get to talk to Putin and listen to him talk for hours about rinky-dink the wise, which of course is the highlight of everyone's day in the world. And on top of that, they really get to leave all the dreariness behind of government administration. I mean, who in the world could ever say no to that? So I think
that's true. You know something else is going to be good too? If the Ayatollah decides to join the ranks of al-Assad inside of Moscow, that'll make it really easy to put these guys on trial at that point. Because if Russia ever collapses and the Putin regime falls apart, and we're able to somehow apprehend Putin, maybe one day, once again, that's a little bit of a pipe dream right now, but maybe it happens one day. Then we got the Ayatollah sitting right there nearby. Then we also have the Syrian dictator sitting right there nearby. It could be a world-class record day of reckoning if that ever comes around.
It could be. What's kind of crazy, though, is that right now, folks, Putin is very unhappy because one of the Pokemons that he was trying to collect got away from him, which was Maduro. We just went and grabbed that one for free. So right now, he's a little bit unhappy with that. We'll get into that later on tonight. The Chinese are also quite unhappy about that as well because they consider their little boy, Russia, to be a real card collector, and they want to make sure that they can collect all their cards. So sadly, right now, they're unfortunately displeased with the fact that the U.S. has taken the Maduro card. So at the moment, there's still Kameni on the table. I mean, that's something to be happy about. They could get a Kameni, but the Maduros are a little bit more elusive. Nevertheless, though, getting us back into the internal situation within the Islamic Republic of Iran, we did also see that one police officer was confirmed on film to apparently not be that big of a fan of the Kameni regime, although he's a police officer enforcing the laws of the Islamic Republic. He burned a printed out picture of Kameni, and then he actually sprayed onto the wall. I want to make sure that I get this correct. Javid Shah, which means long live the Shah. So let's take a look at this clip. Oh, okay, well, we're going to mute that. I thought that was just ambience in the streets of, the revolution. Apparently that's a song. But we can see him burning up the piece of paper and then whipping out a spray can bottle. I gotta say, policemen wearing fanny caps, the fanny pack deals, I gotta say, really weird sort of a selection on wardrobe, but, I guess it is what it is.
Apparently, don't have very high fitness requirements for their police forces. This fella here is not exactly in good shape.
He's a little bit of a portly fella. He's as far as policing, he is certainly policing the donut shops. That's one thing that we cannot be mistaken on.
This is a bad sign, though, for the Iranian regime, because that was one thing I was making a point about. I think it was 6 days ago I made a point like this, that if the security forces or even the police start flipping in larger numbers, and the fact this guy was so emboldened to film a video doing this, that indicates to me that most likely you can assume there are probably more guys of security forces that are also doing this as well, or otherwise he wouldn't have put a target on himself by filming a video doing this. He must have felt emboldened to pull it off.
You know, he might have actually realized that the winds of change are coming around. He's just deciding to give himself a little bit of an easier time after the revolution succeeds. That might also be the case as well. Nevertheless, though, this is an Iranian police officer that appears to be generally throwing away his allegiance to the current government. And we've also been able to see that apparently the scale of the ongoing revolution has grown a little bit more. Big shout out to Phytex Network that put out this infographic, but this is all of the areas where there is an active ongoing revolution. Take a look.
That's a hell of a lot right there. It's basically the whole country. That part that really has no markers on it, that part's pretty much like largely uninhabited, isn't it?
Yeah, let me see if I can go pull that up on the second screen. The second screen has been working with me for about 15 minutes, Matthew. Praise be. So hopefully it will continue to do that. Population density of Iran. And let me go and get this map for all of y'all to show y'all where all the Iranians are at. So this is the population density map of Iran. And you can see that in this area, right over here in the eastern part of the country, there's nobody living there. Now, like some other YouTube channels, we can make like a 50-minute long documentary about why 70% of the country lives on the western side of Iran. But I'm going to cut it short for y'all and say, that's a desert, nothing grows out there. In the words of Sam Kinison, you live in a desert! So, obviously, nobody's living out there. So, basically, the ongoing revolution is everywhere where everyone's living. Pretty much the whole country.
Yeah, I would say so. So that means at this point, there's literally nowhere you could go inside of Iran to seek refuge from this whole situation. Pretty much, if you live inside of that country, you have a revolution going on in your city or town. Like, there's no way to really avoid it at this point. And, I mean, this is just the ones that are big, like the ones that they were actually able to mark on the map. So, I mean, the country is falling apart. I mean, even with the security forces that the Ayatollah has at his disposal, you couldn't hope to put down all this. I mean, this is an out-of-control forest fire at this point.
Yeah, I would have to say this is generally just insanely out of control at this point. I mean, every major city within Iran has at least more than 3 active revolutions going on within it. The ones in Isfahan, Tehran, Shiraz, as well as the other larger cities to the west, which are all embroiled in ongoing revolutions. Basically, the entire country is revolting against the government right now, the best way to put it. Every single population center. And once again, this is the population density map of Iran. This is where all the active revolutions are ongoing. There's literally hardly an area of Iran where there is not an active ongoing revolution where people are living right now. And as far as, also by the way, folks, as far as the areas out here in western Iran, that is not like a low density populated area. Within those areas of Iran, there's literally nobody living there. There's not a soul in there. So in the areas that are white on this map, there's literally nobody in there. So that's why there is no revolutions on the map in that area. And that's also why there's nobody living there. It all lines up. Moving on out of that news, however, of how large the revolution has gotten, we also were able to see a little bit more footage of the mass protests, or revolution if you want to call it that are happening still within Tehran and are gaining momentum. Take a look at this clip. We also had another clip right here. This is from a high-rise. Quite a large number of people. No matter how you try and look at it, this is still ongoing quite heavily at this point. And so with that, folks, we are seeing that the situation is continuing to deteriorate within the country, and that comes on top of the U.S. sending in massive amounts of forces into U.S. CENTCOM's Area of Responsibility right now through a United States strategic airlift. We're also seeing the Israelis have also authorized some form of a war plan against the Iranians, which will be implemented at some point in the future, and they're working on the details of. So not only is the Iranian government on the very verge of collapse right now because of the internal revolution, if they somehow end up surviving that, they will probably not be able to survive the upcoming U.S. strikes and the Israeli strikes that are soon to be following, which appear at this point to be more so geared towards decapitating the Iranian government than they are trying to just conduct damage to the nuclear and ballistic missile research facilities and development facilities of the country. So with that, we are going to be moving on out of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we're actually going to be moving us on and over into the area of Europe, at least for a short moment, to cover some breaking news developments within this area. Right now, we do understand that the Republic of Poland's airspace within the southeastern area of the country has been closed due to an ongoing drone attack inside of Ukraine. We can actually show you all that area right here, which it is an incredibly small sliver. It's right around Lublin and over to the east. Most aircraft are literally just skirting right through it, or right past it at the moment, right off to its western side. But right now, the airspace is currently closed to give a bit of an air defense buffer, just in case some Russian drones do cross the border. Additionally, we have been able to hear of other incredibly large incidents that have happened in Europe over the course of the day. Most importantly, the entire airspace of Greece was closed. Right now, to give you all a check on that, it is not closed at the moment, and it does appear to have reopened. But earlier in the day, the Greek airspace air traffic controllers had completely lost all of their communication systems, including their redundant systems, meaning that the entire airspace of Greece was closed for several hours as a result of that incident. More importantly, though, we have to move on up into Berlin, which is the capital of the Federal Republic of Germany. Berlin is an incredibly important city within Germany, and it's really one of the only important ones that exists inside the eastern part of the country. Because of the whole deal that went on with East Germany and West Germany basically was economically handicapped over about the past, 40 years. For about 40 years up until the end of the Cold War, and generally, in the modern day, East Germany has still never really recovered. So it's actually a bit of an interesting fact that outside of Dresden, Berlin is basically the only other major city within the eastern part of Germany that is somewhat economically significant. And if you talk to some Germans, they'll tell you that Dresden isn't really that significant. Apparently, I've never been there, but some people say it's not really the greatest place. But outside of that, we have actually been able to hear that apparently the fundraiser is doing incredibly well. Matthew, what do we got on that?
All right, just want to give a quick shout out. We're about to get right back to our news, by the way. Just a quick shout out to the fundraiser. We're currently running one for Nova Ukraine tonight to help the Ukrainians and the humanitarian situation. Right now, we have a $2,500 goal, and we have just passed the $2,100 mark thanks to High Dunes, who just doing a $250 donation. So we are super close. We are less than $400 away from hitting that goal. So if you'd like to, you can donate to that fundraiser and once again help us smash the goal and help Ukrainians yet again tonight. Just to also mention this, on the channel over the last few years we've been running, actually several years, we've raised over $1.5 million in total for charity, and that's something we're extremely proud of. So we appreciate everybody tonight donating once again to help make that goal possible.
And I gotta say, that is truly unbelievable to hear, folks. My second monitor is kind of like dipping in and out every once in a while, so I really can't get a good look at the live chat or anything tonight, so I'm kind of just winging this without even really getting to see what folks are saying about anything, even at that. But I do have to say that is absolutely incredible to hear, and hopefully we will be able to hit that $2,500 goal here incredibly soon. I'm sure that we will, considering that we've almost gotten to it within the first hour alone. I bet you we're about to be getting to that here incredibly soon. But with that, folks, we're going to be getting on back into our major news at the moment, which is coming out of Berlin, that apparently some form of, as BC Skyman throws in a $200, holy moly, and Sion,
Look at that.
let's see, I don't know how to say your name, but you threw in a 50. Holy moly. And I gotta say, the fundraiser is really starting to take off at this point, and I hope that it's going good places. It looks like it definitely is. But getting us on into Germany before we hit the goal, there has been a significant power blackout that has happened within Germany. Apparently 80,000 people have been left without power, and at the moment, German authorities are believing that this is some form of eco-terrorism sabotage that was conducted in the capital. We do not believe that at the moment this is affiliated with the Russian Federation. But Matthew, did we just hit the goal?
No, we're still about $50 away, but we're getting close.
Oh, we're getting very close, folks. We're getting very close. But right now, inside of Berlin, 80,000 people are without power, and it appears that there is a significant blackout within the area.
We just hit the goal. Chaka Chaka Igor. Let's go. I tell you what, look at that right there. That's fantastic. Another goal smashed to help the citizens of Ukraine, that is. And that is, once again, a very noble goal. And we appreciate all of you for helping us to smash that goal once again tonight. That is truly great to see right there. And we do appreciate that.
And I gotta say, absolutely amazing, folks. In less than an hour since our stream has gone live, we have been able to raise more than $2,500 for Nova Ukraine, which is a truly incredible and amazing thing to hear. And I gotta say, a humongous shout out and a humongous thanks to all of y'all for helping to support that fundraiser and helping to save lives over in Ukraine through Nova Ukraine, which is a very good nonprofit and has helped out loads of people over the years that have been in war-torn areas of the state of Ukraine. And so with that, humongous thanks to everyone once again. We'll be getting to calling out the top donors probably here in a little bit, but here is the blackout inside of Berlin.
And they're saying that eco-terrorists pulled this off. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, so like kind of like the people who were kind of in line with like the I don't like I'm not saying these are the people who did it, but kind of like the Just Stop Oil people. Apparently, it was like some sort of a more extreme group, kind of on along those lines. That apparently was the one who hit the substations or something along those lines with some sort of serious damage and knocked them out.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not buying that story for a second. This sounds like a hybrid attack.
It sounds like it could have been, and also on top of that, sometimes these eco groups have other ulterior motives behind them, just to be entirely honest with y'all. If you look at a lot of them, usually they're supported by someone else out there in the world that it really doesn't make any sense that they're supporting them. Like, some of them are supported by the Russian Federation, some of them are supported...
Holy moly! So Brian Maddox just threw in a $2,500 donation to the charity right this second. That is literally the entire goal, literally doubled in one single donation. That is crazy right there, Brian. A huge shout out.
Holy moly, I guess we're over $5,000 raised at this point. Dang, that is unbelievable. I gotta say, a humongous shout out to Brian Maddox. I cannot believe that he just threw in $2,500. That is the entire fundraiser goal in one donation. Unbelievable. That's truly insane, actually. And I got to give him a huge shout out. Huge thanks for you supporting the fundraiser like that. That is going to help out a load of folks over in Ukraine. And we're greatly appreciative of folks like you supporting these fundraisers and helping the LSA and the entirety of our channel to have an impact on what's going on around the world and helping out in a way on the very news and the very people that we're talking about tonight. So a humongous shout out to Brian Maddox once again for that. Unbelievable. But with that, we are going to be moving back into our news, and apparently the power will only be restored on the 8th of January, which is going to be in about 3 days German time. That is an incredibly significant amount of time to be without power in the midst of the winter, so hopefully there will be some sort of emergency infrastructure brought into place that'll be able to keep these people warm at a minimum while the power is being worked on to be restored. Moving on from that, though, we are going to be hopping out of Europe for a little bit and heading on over and into the area of Venezuela, because it's now time for us to get on into the news segment for the hunt for the 40 thieves. Y'all have noticed that I've removed Captain Crack Sparrow from it because Captain Crack Sparrow is apparently up in New York at the moment, and the hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow is generally concluded. But the hunt for his 40 thieves apparently is still going to be continuing, and we have been able to hear a decent amount of interesting developments out of Venezuela over the course of this day. So let's get on into it. First off, we have been able to hear that apparently the Venezuelans are not really, kind of giving up. To put it lightly, they're actually continuing to resist, which is something that we kind of expected afterwards, because why in the world would they give up just considering that the top dude was taken away? So this was a statement made today by the Venezuelan Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces, which has affirmed and announced their support for the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as the interim president of Venezuela. So here's the statement from the Venezuelan Ministry of Defense. The Bolivarian National Armed Forces strongly condemn the cowardly kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro, constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, our commander-in-chief, and his wife, First Lady Dr. Celia Flores de Maduro, an act perpetrated yesterday, Saturday, January 3rd, after the cold-blooded murder of a large part of his security team, soldiers, and innocent citizens. So at this point, folks, we can actually confirm, because the Ministry of Defense of Venezuela has also said this, that the U.S. Special Forces, when they captured Maduro, apparently mowed down his entire security team in the process. So there was some sort of a large firefight that did go down in the seizure of Maduro. Likewise, in accordance with the decision of the Constitutional Chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice dated January 3rd, 2026, by which Ms. Delcy Elonia Rodriguez Gomez, Executive Vice President of the Republic, was appointed to assume, in acting capacity, all the powers, duties, and faculties of the President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and in strict compliance with the provisions of our Constitution, the Organic Law on States of Emergency, and the Organic Law on National Security, we fully support the decree of a state of external disturbance throughout the national territory previously signed. In this same vein, the Bolivarian government will guarantee the governability of the country, and our institution will continue to employ all of its available capabilities for military defense, the maintenance of internal order, and the preservation of peace. Therefore, we activate throughout the entire national geographic space and in perfect popular military police fusion the full operational readiness in order to integrate the elements of national power in the mission to confront imperial aggression, forming a single combat bloc to ensure freedom, independence, and sovereignty of the nation. The FAMB is the United Liberated Army of the 21st century, and then they have a whole bunch of slogans down here of their socialist revolution in Venezuela. But generally, what this is showing us is that, one, The Maduro disappearing really didn't do a whole lot, and I'll be honest with y'all, we kind of knew that that was going to be the case because if like for example, if the president of the United States drops dead, hypothetically, we have a whole line of succession of people who are going to immediately take his place. The vice president moves up one position to the president, and so on and so forth. So it's not like the entire country collapses like in a movie, say, to where, the top head honcho is taken out like Xerxes in the movie 300, and then the whole thing's over. It's just not like that. It doesn't work like that in reality. So while we did get Maduro, and I will have to say, one hell of a military operation at that, that did not mean that the Venezuelan government collapsed overnight. Nevertheless, it does appear that they're going to be trying to offer some form of stiff resistance, at least according to the Ministry of Defense's official statement today. This was translated into English, by the way. This was actually published in Spanish, so that's why you'll notice that the text fonts are somewhat larger and smaller from line to line, is because someone actually had to go through and translate each of these lines and then put the English text over it. So just to put that out there as well, this is not the original text. This is translated from Spanish. Nevertheless, it also appears the government will be continuing, and we don't really know what's going to be going on from here, at least inside of Venezuela. One thing's for certain, though, they are apparently going to be actively resisting. We have also been able to hear, once again, to confirm this, that a large part of Maduro's security team was killed in the U.S. attack. So we now actually can confirm, even by the Venezuelan statement, that Delta Force or whoever was down there who captured Maduro literally wiped out the house, basically, in terms of the security detail. So at some point somewhere, there was a large firefight in the attempt to seize Maduro, and they quite literally wiped out dozens of the security team members. We've heard some numbers that have been ranging anywhere in between 60 to 90 Venezuelan security operators were killed in the midst of the ongoing raid the night before last night. So that is quite a large number, and I gotta say, apparently Delta Force really is the boogeyman. Apparently they just show up, they wipe out your entire security team, grab you, and then you disappear. And they must have done that in a very short amount of time at that, because the entire raid was less than 2.5 hours from the first bombs falling to when they announced that he had been successfully taken into U.S. custody, which I had only assumed that they would have made that announcement after Maduro had arrived back at the Iwo Jima. So they did all that rather quickly.
But also, you got to give the people their credit, though. There's always a group out there that never really gets their due credit because they kind of work behind the scenes and they don't really get their credit. The only reason this operation went so well, first of all, a huge credit to the Delta Force and also the 160th. Obviously, huge credit goes to them. They actually carried it out. But that operation would not have gone smoothly at all if they did not have crazy good intelligence. And a huge shout out to the intelligence, the CIA specifically, for making this happen so smoothly, because it's believed that there was an on-the-ground source that actually ratted in the Maduro regime's government that actually told about his whereabouts. They even knew what he ate. That's how good the intelligence was that they were getting. So I would assume they had an inside source, but they had mapped this thing out for months. It was a long operation to get intel on Maduro and how he lived his life in order to find the exact spot he would be at the exact time to be able to grab him literally while he was wearing his pajamas. So a huge shout out to the intel, by the way. That's a huge part of it too.
Yeah, that is true. The CIA did an insane amount of work, and we have been able to hear just a little bit amount of a detail that apparently they had on-the-ground intelligence agents that were gathering intelligence on everything he did, where he traveled from day to day, what he wore, what he ate, who he talked to, who generally was around him as far as the security detail, the security perimeter around him, the bodyguards that were involved, the kind of weapons they had. They had basically every single piece of information possible. So when this raid was conducted, there was literally not a single surprise to be found when the Delta Force landed on the ground, because everything had been pre-mapped beforehand by the CIA and then handed over to the Department of Defense for them to then disseminate to Delta Force in the operational planning of the mission, so that way the mission would go off quite literally without a single hitch. I've got to say, it's really interesting, though, Matthew, that we could nab Maduro after a couple of months of surveillance. I gotta say that this actually kind of shows y'all folks a little bit of how incompetent the Venezuelans are. They could get this depth of information on Maduro. It took about 9 years for the U.S. to go find Osama bin Laden and even where he was.
Oh, well, it was different for him, though. Osama bin Laden moved around like he was a nomad. Excuse me. He moved around like he was a nomad. He literally didn't have a stationary point. I think the only reason they caught him at the safe house, I think, if I have the story correct, I think someone ratted. It's always someone ratting. Like, that's the easy way to grab people is when someone snitches. So it was a lot different for him. Maduro was a public figure, so he was a lot, I won't say necessarily easy, because it's never really easy, but he was a little bit easier to catch than Osama.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that is true, but at the same time, though, when you think about that, it's like hell, anyone could give a better run for their money than Maduro did. I mean, Maduro literally got nabbed in the middle of the night, like with Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein went into running and hiding. With Osama bin Laden, he did the same. Even Noriega back in Operation Just Cause, he actually gave the U.S. a run for their money as well, trying to hide from them and evade them, or at least resist being captured. Meanwhile, Maduro apparently throughout this whole thing, folks, no joke, did nothing to change his routine. Nobody encouraged him to change his routine or even where he was at. And so he was literally mapped out perfectly and then just nabbed.
Yeah, and also another interesting aspect as well, his security force that apparently got wiped clean when Delta went in there. They apparently mowed them all down from the sounds of it. So there was resistance, and apparently that might be how some got injured possibly, is because they were fighting back. Pretty much the entire makeup of Maduro's security team that guarded his house was all Cuban security forces. So most of them were Cubans. So they just mowed the Cubans down. They ran in there, got him apparently while he was running to the safe room, and that's where they found him. And he wasn't able to close the door because they had already mowed down all the security team, and they weren't there to shut it behind him. That's why he got caught.
I'd have to say it was quite a wild operation at that, and I got to say it's really impressive to see this sort of a thing right here, and how it went down. And now knowing that there actually was armed resistance and that this wasn't some sort of a pre-planned arrangement, there actually was a full-blown firefight. And it went off so smoothly that afterwards, a lot of people were immediately going, maybe Maduro negotiated his way to just be captured so that way he didn't look bad on him. No, he was just legitimately captured. He didn't negotiate anything. And apparently, folks, there was a reason why this was done. I'll show you. This right here. Apparently, because
Oh man.
apparently, folks, because he was humping on stage like a dog in heat, that got the U.S. pissed off enough that that's the reason why they went and got him. We're not even joking. Apparently, from what the U.S. government has told the New York Times, which published this information today, apparently the fact that Maduro would go up on stage and dance and sing and do all that stupid stuff apparently made them believe that Maduro was making a joke of the U.S. government and that they basically had to go down there and teach everyone a lesson that the U.S. isn't joking. So that's the whole reason why this was done.
They said it was the dance move that pissed off the U.S. officials. I think the president specifically, apparently, at least allegedly, it pissed off. But it was those music remixes that did it as well. You know how he was doing like these music remixes and he was playing them on his podcast. Maduro was doing that. That apparently set off the officials badly, and that's apparently, if you believe the report, that's apparently what made them pull the trigger.
Man, I gotta tell you, man, I've been seeing, folks, I've been seeing memes all over my Instagram all day long today. And I think one of the funniest ones, though, was the one where, Maduro was sitting there mad. He was like, come down here and get me, coward. I'm in Miraflores. Come get me. And then it just cuts from that to him sitting there with his thumbs up with the DEA agents surrounding him. It's like, honestly, I got to be honest with y'all, folks. That was probably not a good move on his end because he was making the U.S. look like we were a joke and that we might not follow through with anything that we're saying. So he basically kind of walked himself into getting captured just by the overly flamboyant actions that he was conducting to try and make the U.S. look like a joke.
Yeah, I think the reason why he was doing this, because I don't think Maduro was doing this necessarily to, flip off the U.S. officials necessarily. He may have realized that after the fact, but I think he was doing this to try to humanize himself, so that way Americans watching this would say, "Oh, look, he's just a nice guy. He's just dancing around to some YMCA music or something. We can't warrant going down there and taking this guy out or something like that, or taking him prisoner." That's what he was hoping to do, but all he did was piss off the very egotistical leadership, and it turns out that's what apparently got his whole country struck.
How dare he make fun of me? but anyways, oh man, I gotta tell y'all, something kind of crazy to think though. That might actually be the reason why they went and nabbed him. Is that a good reason to nab someone? Honestly, not really. But I mean, was it cool that they nabbed him? Like the operation, at least. I mean, that was pretty cool. But moving on from that and back into Caracas, we did also hear that a major checkpoint on one of the highways entering Caracas today is apparently unmanned for the first time in a month, and nobody knows why. So that was a little interesting. Additionally, we also were able to see the comm system that was destroyed by the U.S. airstrike, and it's gone. I mean, it was completely destroyed as a result of these strikes. And we could see the Venezuelans going through and checking to make sure the systems are still working. And I think I can give them the answer. It's probably not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it isn't. But, they got to make sure. Yeah, they got to double check, though. We also saw confirmed footage that a manpad appears to have actually been fired in the midst of the attack, which is the only confirmed air defense fire we saw the entire raid. There it is. We can't confirm that it hit anything, actually.
What about that really expensive anti-stealth Chinese radar system that Venezuela had just acquired? I don't think that worked too well.
Oh yeah, that didn't work.
I think Chinese and Russian equipment. I think they might have dropping sales after this little failure.
I think they probably will. Folks. By the way, Matthew, can we go get the sales ad for that we have on Twitter? I didn't put it on our map, but can we go get that really quickly to show folks?
Yeah, let me go see if I can nab that real quick. I'll see if I can grab it.
All right, so we'll wait for that. But while Matthew's getting it, and I'm sure he'll tell me that he's got it literally in like 5 seconds from now. But while he's getting that, I'll explain to y'all what's funny about this. China has a air defense radar that they claim actually can pick up and detect F-35s and F-22s on radar, which sounds like a... Yes, thank you. But here's the sales pitch. Do you think we could show that on air, Matthew, the sales pitch they made for their radar?
Let's see here. Let me check real quick. Let's see here. It says Chinese promo for the anti-stealth radar. So, isn't most of the defense companies owned by China and that are in China?
Oh, they're all owned by China. They're like state-run defense industries.
It's a 50-50 chance. I'm not totally sure, to be honest with you. Then
we won't play the audio. We'll just play the clip because we don't want, we don't want, Xi Jinping coming down and going, "Shangwadi," and then it is with like a copyright strike. So we'll hold off on that. But here is the ad that they made for their the JY-27 radar. And just to put this out there to y'all, this giant thing that basically looks like a large chain link fence is actually, according to China, the most advanced radar system on the entirety of the globe. And according to their claims, it actually can pick up F-22s and F-35s on radar like they were not stealth. So I gotta say this is something that I just find very funny. Is that when they made that claim, which we covered on air a long time ago when this radar first came out, a lot of people wanted to tell us, "Oh no, Enforcer, you don't understand. The Chinese, they don't have all of that wicked corruption that exists within the imperialist industrial complex in America. Their radars actually do work, can pick up stealth fighters, and they're made at a fraction of the cost." Apparently these didn't pick up a single jet overnight, and the Venezuelans had about 7 of them. So I don't know how in the world people expect me to believe that Chinese equipment is on par with America's, because they have an entire what is that thing, Matthew, at Chernobyl? Like the giant radar system that they made?
The Mockingbird?
Yeah, they have literally like an eighth of the Mockingbird here set up on this portable radar system, and it couldn't pick up a damn thing at all. Like, it picked up nothing. During the whole strike, these things just came back with no radar signatures from anything anywhere whatsoever. So it was basically like they were looking into the void, while the U.S. was literally flying F-35s, from what we know now, almost right over Caracas and dropping bombs right on their capital. These things saw nothing. So, as we knew, and as we always know, folks, Chinese equipment is dog shit. You don't get good equipment out of a $300 billion military budget annually with only a fraction of that going to research and development. It's impossible. Chinese equipment absolutely sucks. And the only reason that Chinese equipment looked good in the Pakistan-India border conflict is because India sucks. I mean, that's literally the only defense that we can give. India is absolutely dog shit at fighting anyone, much less someone equipped with, say, subpar equipment. You can equip the Indian military with the best equipment on the planet, like a French 4th-gen fighter, and they will get it shot down. So that's the only reason why people were going, is Chinese equipment kind of good? It's like, no, the Indians just suck. When you look at them actually going up against the U.S., they couldn't even see them. Like, at this point, folks, China's greatest radar system is so bad that we could fly F-35s over Beijing and go pick up Xi Jinping by helicopter, and nobody would even be none the wiser. They wouldn't even know that it was happening like Maduro did, because their radars can't even pick up anything.
Yeah, it's just a joke, really. I think both of those countries there might be reevaluating how good their equipment is. But I will say this though, not to give the Chinese defense companies a free pass here, but it is possible that maybe it was a slightly operator error, maybe in Venezuela, because Venezuela's military is obviously not very well trained. Like, I mean, that's clear as a bell. So it is possible that maybe they didn't know how to use it properly. Maybe it wasn't, operating at full efficiency or something. Trying to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here, but I wouldn't be surprised either if it just doesn't work that well.
Man, I would be straight up with you. It just doesn't work well. I mean, that's the real truth of it. I mean, like, people always want to act like countries that have like a third or a quarter of our military budget are actually comparable to us in ability. But the truth is that technology costs, especially high-end technology, it costs the same basically everywhere in the world. So if you're working with a third of the budget or a quarter of the budget that we have, you're just not going to get the quality. Like, it's just not going to be there. Because everyone said that about the Russians. Oh, the Russians, they're lean, mean killers. The reason why they have a really small military budget of like 60 and 70 billion dollars annually is because it's not over bloated by corruption here in America. And it's like, no, the reason why they had a 60 to 70 billion dollar military budget is because they're dirt ass poor. And then on top of that, they also are skimming most of that money out of the system, so hardly any of it's even used at all for anything that's earmarked for. So their stuff sucks, and it's proven in Ukraine that it sucks. I mean, the Russians are fighting a country that is using half Soviet era equipment and half 40-year-old Western equipment, and they can't even get close to even looking like they might be beating them. They're basically at a stalemate with them, or they're getting beat pretty badly by that country, which is Ukraine. So imagine what they would look like if they went up against the United States with the modern equipment that we have that we're not giving to the Ukrainians, that's about 40 years old, and then the other half of what Ukraine uses is Soviet. So I mean, the Ukrainians are basically fighting right now with two hands tied behind their back. One hand tied behind their back because half of the army is still using Soviet equipment, and the other one tied behind their back because it's 40-year-old US and Western equipment, and they're still giving the Russians a run for their money. Imagine what Ukraine would look like if they were fighting the Russians right now and they had only modern Western-made equipment from the modern day and age that's not 40 years old. Imagine what that would look like. They would be winning this war by far right now.
Oh yeah, they would be winning, but then Russia would probably nuke them at that rate, though, because that would probably actually cause Russia to nuke Ukraine at that point.
Actually, man, you forgot. The Ukrainians would whip out Operation Whoopty-Doopty, Scoopty-Floopty, and they would unscrew all of the screws from the ICBMs, and they would just fall apart when they launch.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it'd be something.
Idea.
I mean, like, that might be what they're doing right now, I mean, hell, like, look at all of the Ukrainian special operations that have been conducted over the course of the whole war. Operation Spiderweb, the submarine attacks. I mean, stuff that you would have never imagined that anyone could do. I mean, hell, they literally just robbed $500,000 out of the Russian government by faking a whole assassination attempt. If the Ukrainians thought they were about to get nuked, folks, I'll be entirely honest with y'all. They're going to pull Operation Scoopty Whoopty Floopty right out of their ass, and they're going to probably do something to try and avoid that if they can. Although that might be on up there. But also another thing that we also have to consider, Matthew, is that if the Russians might try and nuke them, they might fire that Oreshnik, and that thing might blow up before it even gets to Ukraine, or it might fail in its launcher and not even launch.
Yeah, I think it could be Operation Rinky Dink the Unwise. If Putin ever ordered a nuclear strike onto Ukraine, that could be a bad thing, because remember, Russia's nuclear chain of authority does not work the same as the United States. There's a few extra steps you have to go through to get those nukes in the air, unlike the United States. So there's always a possibility that maybe a commander at the actual launch site maybe refuses the order, perhaps, or maybe questions it and gives a delay. That's always possible as well, because we don't know how sick and tired the military is in Russia of the Putin regime. We're not really sure. And it could be that if something that extreme was ordered, knowing that would likely prompt a response from NATO, that you might see people resist it.
Yeah, it might actually see that. I think that would actually be a likelihood, possibly. Because do you think anyone, folks, would sit there and go, yeah, let's fire nukes at the U.S., let's follow through with that order, I'm sure it'll turn out well. I'm sure not a lot of people in Russia would have that kind of mindset. Even the ones who were in charge of the nuclear battery commands, I think they're probably going to be like, I think I'll pass. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, at least with the whole Chinese radar. And it appears that Matthew, I heard actually when Maduro was getting arrested, he was actually yelling, "What are the charges? Buying a radar? A succulent Chinese radar? How dare you, sir?"
Man, get your hands off my janky radar. Also, by the way, that sweatshirt that he was wearing the other day sold out. By the way, that gray like Nike Tech that he was wearing like that.
Oh,
I don't know.
really?
I'm not sure if Maduro was wearing that when he got snagged or if they put that on him. I'm not sure how that worked, but apparently that sold out. So it's a popular item now.
Man, apparently the U.S. is starting a clothing line on nabbed dictators. It's like, wow, interesting sort of a thing. But with that, folks, that's all the news that we got from Venezuela on the ground. But that's about to move us on into all the other big news. And before we move on from that, though, we do have to mention that because the U.S. government is clearly seeing a Venezuela that isn't backing down, and it isn't really talking to the United States at the moment, and now it's claiming that it's going to actively resist, a lot of people are wondering what's going to be going on with that. Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so jumping into that poll right there, we are seeing that apparently now U.S. officials are stalling the new Venezuela strikes because they're currently trying to negotiate with the current vice president of Venezuela, who is now officially the Venezuelan president, apparently. So how does this unfold? 44% said USA will do round 2 strikes very soon on Venezuela, while 35% said the USA will strike a deal with Venezuela, and 10% said a ground invasion seems very likely. So this is a big question mark for me because the U.S. was primed and ready to go for a round 2 strike last night. They were ready for it. They're now holding off on that, even though they had already prepped it, because they believe they can somehow negotiate with the current Venezuelan leadership. And they probably, not probably, they do have a lot of leverage over the Venezuelans, but it's a big question mark whether or not the Venezuelan government is going to try to martyr itself to make a point. We don't know if that's going to be the case. Right now, the U.S. is trying to figure that out as well. The officials are. They're trying to test the lady's resolve that's currently in charge to see if she really means what she says or is she just bluffing. And I would give it a 50-50 chance that she's bluffing because she's not going to stand up against the entirety of the United States military. She saw what happened to Maduro, and apparently they're going to do worse to her if she doesn't cooperate. So I have a feeling that they might strike a deal with them, but just because they strike a deal with her doesn't mean the situation's over. It could be that someone else pops up that's currently in the Maduro government and tries to take over and then just oust her and say, we're going to stand up and we're going to take the country over and fight the United States. So it's really shaky. Like it's really unknown where this is going to go right now. There's too many variables to predict where it's going to go. So I'm actually with the 11%. I am unsure. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say I'm pretty certain the U.S. is going to do a second round of strikes here in the near future because there's no way to deal with this, folks, rather than cleaning out their government, going in and overthrowing it. So there's going to be a second round of strikes, and those are probably going to be the preparatory strikes to go in and clear the place out because it's not going to look good if they bend to the U.S. Basically, they're asking themselves to already get overthrown by their own people. So really the only chance that they have is to resist. And then they're going to get wiped out anyway. So they're really at a rock and a hard place at the moment. No matter what direction they take, someone's going to overthrow them. And when I say their own people, folks, I don't mean like the people of Venezuela. I mean their own people in the government are going to overthrow them. So I think that there's definitely going to be a second round of strikes coming around. And I also think, to be entirely honest with y'all, folks, there's going to be a second round of strikes coming around no matter what because of some internal situations that are currently going on within the US of A. So we'll just leave that at that. We'll let y'all fill in the blank there. But I hope that does address that the best we can. Before we move on, though, I do have to make sure that we mention where in the world the fundraiser's at. So Matthew, where's it at right now?
All right, so we are currently at $6,100 raised. We have doubled,
Dang!
if not close to tripled, the original goal. So the fundraiser has done fantastic tonight, and a huge shout out to everybody who's donated. And to call off our top donors real quick, we have had a $2,500 donation tonight from Brian Maddox, which was literally the original goal. So that is insane, and a huge shout out to Brian for throwing that massive donation in tonight. That is truly wild to see, and Brian deserves a ton of credit for that massive massive donation. Also, a huge shout out to Hal Rose for that 333, also massive, and then a 250 from Don Edwards, as well as High Dunes, as well as a 200 from Snoozy Green, as well as BC Skyman and ARP Bob, and we also had a 100 from Peace with War, as well as Neil Vizanant, Rojas, as well as Old Warrior, who threw in a 60, and then Mike Young, who threw in a 50 as well, along with Zach G, Greg Carrier, J. Bull Dosser, as well as Heather Fitzgibbon, Chef Danny B, Siona DeGraff, as well as Chef Danny B once again, and then we had a 50 from BC Skyman, South Carolina Deer Girl, as well as Mark Eade, Eric Findley, and South Carolina Deer Girl yet again. So with that, that is our top donors so far of the night. A huge shout out to them, and a huge shout out to everybody else as well. We would shout everybody out that's donated, but unfortunately we would be here all night and probably run the whole audience off at that point. So a huge shout out to everybody we weren't able to call off as well, and we sincerely do appreciate that massive support to the charity of the night, which is Nova Ukraine. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that is an unbelievable amount of people who are in the top donor list tonight. I got to give a humongous shout out to everyone, especially Brian Maddox, for the unbelievable support that they've thrown in tonight, because that has helped us funders to get over $6,000 raised for none other than Nova Ukraine. We always like to think that we are able to help out in any way, even if it's a small way here on the channel with all the folks who watch, through our support on these Sunday night fundraisers. A lot of people always talk about, people who cover this sort of stuff, and this and that and whatnot, but we always try and make sure that we help out the folks that we're actually covering the news on, which basically every weekend comes down to the folks over in Ukraine who are currently embroiled in a major war right now for their own survival. So I got to say humongous thanks to everyone, whether we were able to call y'all out or not, for supporting that fundraiser and helping it to keep on getting way beyond the goal, and y'all still can at the moment as well right now. If you would like to support the fundraiser, you can. And also, to explain this really quickly, folks, we run our fundraisers, because we have a large amount of people here tonight, I want to let y'all know how this works. We run our fundraisers through a YouTube built-in system called YouTube Give. YouTube Give allows us to be able to set up a fundraiser and raise funds for a nonprofit, but we are never involved in handling the money in any step. So YouTube opens up a bank account through their own system built into YouTube, and when anyone supports it, it goes directly into that bank account, and we have absolutely no involvement in handling the money or anything else in between. We do that because it is the most transparent way to fundraise on YouTube, and not only that, YouTube does not take a single cent out of your donation for processing fees or anything else along that line. 100% of what you send in goes directly to that nonprofit. So it is an incredibly good way to fundraise, and that's the literal only way that we fundraised anything anywhere in the world the entire time that we've been covering news on this show. So I hope that does address that for everyone who maybe knew how we fundraise and how that works, because we think that's the most transparent way to be able to support a fundraiser and to be able to help out without it becoming something incredibly questionable, like some other people who end up handling the money and then, oddly enough, a lot of it disappears, and then it's like, well, where did it go? And then, there was this one guy, folks, at the beginning of the war in Ukraine. I won't even mention his name, but you remember him, Matthew. Hey guys, I'm here in the front line, just busted a tank.
Oh, yeah.
And then it turns out that the guy was taking in like tens of thousands of dollars, folks. He never went to the front line, and he was basically running up humongous tabs on the money people were giving him to help out Ukraine and to help out the quote-unquote fighters he was fighting alongside, and he wasn't doing any of that. And then he just disappeared back into America, and no one's really heard or seen of him since. But because of that, at the very beginning of the war, we've always made sure to try and be as transparent and open with fundraising and where the money goes as much as we can. And there's no other better way to do that than through YouTube Give. So I hope that makes sure to mention that well. And with that, folks, before we move on into the rest of our news for the night, I do want to make sure that we grab a couple of questions. We're going to grab 3 of them, but make sure to stick around, folks, because we're about to be getting into the other major news of the night, including the laundry list of people that the president threatened to go to war with today, and also everything else from around the world. So, Matthew, what do we got for a question?
All right, so with that, folks, we actually have super chats tonight and a live chat. So YouTube apparently lets you throw in a super chat on the Sunday night fundraisers anyway still. So we're going to save our super chats for the very last segment of the stream, and we're going to grab 3 quick live chat questions, just so that way we can give proper time to the super chats at the last part of the stream. So our first live chat question, that is, goes to Carrion Crow, who said, who would even take over the government in Iran when they fall?
That's a good question. It appears to be the former, the exiled crown prince of Persia, who generally appears to be the one that we're trying to line up to lead the government. But at the same time, we were doing that with Corina Machado, and she's now being said that she's too weak to lead Venezuela for some reason. So we don't really know. I would assume that it would be Pahlavi, but it might be someone else entirely different, especially if the U.S. gets involved in it. And I've got to say, folks, it's not a good idea to get involved in this. We ought to just let the revolution do what it does and succeed on its own and support it through funding or even arming them if necessary through the intelligence agencies. But I think that what we're about to be doing, which is getting directly involved through airstrikes and whatnot, and then getting involved in government building in a country that isn't ours, that's not going to end up well for us in the long run, especially with how loyal the Iranian state will be in the future. It's not going to be going too well. So I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the second question of the segment.
And this one here goes to Ashen, who said, how many of these locations are confirmed to have armed rioters, ones with rifles?
Basically all of them. We know that Elam is a significant area. Khorramabad, Kermanshah, as well as Hamadan have also been seen to have armed revolutionaries within them. We've also seen armed revolutionaries in Marvdast. We've also seen armed revolutionaries in Avaj, and also around the area of Desful. So basically everywhere. The only places that we haven't seen armed revolutionaries yet would be within central Isfahan, central Iran, or Tabriz. So those are basically the only areas where we have not seen armed revolutionaries. But basically everywhere else, they're armed at this point, and they're becoming more armed with each passing day. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
All right, this one goes to OG Wiggle, who said, didn't the vice president of Venezuela flee to Russia, and how's she going to run the country without even being there? And also, those reports apparently were not accurate. That came out at the very beginning of these attacks. People were saying that she had fled to Russia. Apparently, that never occurred. So that was fake news, as they call it these days. She's still there, and she's also apparently going at it with the U.S. officials as we speak on the back channels. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say she is still inside of Venezuela, and generally that's how she's going to be running the country, is that she's still there. But before we move on, I just saw someone say something funny, Matthew. Someone said, have you ever been to any single one of the countries you're bashing? Hard doubt. No, I haven't, because I would be arrested. Anyone would be arrested if you're an American going to Russia right now. They call every American that goes there a spy. And I'm not gonna I'm not stupid. I'm not gonna go there just to try and satiate your curiosity and then get arrested by a dictatorial government. And then the Chinese keep a hard eye on everything that goes on the internet. And considering that we're a channel with 500,000 subscribers, which, on top of that, we're usually in the top 100 live streams in America every day, I'm not going to China so that way the Chinese Communist Party can bring up charges against me for anti-revolutionary activities and thought, and then put me in prison for that. So clearly,
that would be the first ever forced YouTuber apology video. Most of the time they're voluntary. When they whip out ukuleles and start crying and stuff like that, talking about, please, I'm sorry, please accept my apology, I messed up. It's like, that'd be the first ever forced one in China. They'd be like, you will say it. It's like, oh, I don't want to be put in that position. I'll have to pass.
Yeah, and then if I go to the I literally cannot go to the Islamic Republic of Iran. They ban Americans from going there. And if I did, I'd show up and get my head chopped off by the Islamic Republic's government. So clearly not really on the travel itinerary. And then if you go to North Korea, you turn into Otto Warmbier, and nobody wants to turn into that. So I'm generally going to pass on that one. Generally, though, to put it lightly, the reason why I don't go to those countries is because they're dictatorial shitholes, and I have no interest in going to one of those countries. I'm an American, and I know better to have enough sense to not go to a country where its government absolutely hates anyone who is an American and is going to screw with you. So I hope that addresses that well for you, because I don't think you know that, and I don't really think you get it. And on top of that, the Russians have every major social media influencer that's ever been in support of Ukraine on basically a hit list, where they're either going to try and arrest you or kill you if they get the chance. They're not going out of their way to do it, but if they ever get the opportunity, they are going to try and kill us or arrest us. And so I generally don't want to go to a country which pretty much has a hit out on me at the moment. That wouldn't really make a lot of sense either. So with that, I hope that does address that well. I hope that made a good bit of common sense. And with that, it's time for us, folks, to move on into the rest of our news. Moving us on up into the United States, we have gotten a lot of news today. One, we did get to see a clip to round out our Maduro side of things of Maduro inside of the Metropolitan Detention Center. Take a look. Oh, that guy was so nice. The guy armed, like the guy looks like he's about to fight in Ukraine. And then he goes, "Excuse me." It's like, oh, what a nice guy.
Man. Also, I'm not sure how much of this we can show, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
Oh, well, I mean, here he is right there. There he is. But we won't show the rest of it. So moving on from that, we also were able to hear that apparently Maduro is going to be brought in front of a judge on Monday. That's kind of quick. But we'll see what goes on after that. Wouldn't that be an arraignment, Matthew, where they put a little bit of bail on him and like the whole thing?
Yes, it would actually. But I have a feeling that he might be a flight risk, so I think he's going to be denied bail.
Wouldn't it be funny, man, if a judge went, okay, we're going to put a $5 million bail on him, and then someone goes, I'll pay it. It's like, huh? It's
Oh,
like,
man. Honestly, if they put any bail on him, he would pay that and he would skip town, is my guess.
I think he probably would, folks. I think he would. We actually heard, folks, that he's going to be brought in front of Judge Judy. I'm just kidding, by the way. That's not happening. But moving us on down into Washington, D.C., we also were able to hear that they're finally going to be briefing the Congress. Apparently, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Attorney General, and the CIA Director, and also the Joint Chiefs, the Joint Chiefs of Staff will be briefing the chairs and ranking members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the Senate Armed Services Committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and the House Armed Services Committee, as well as the Gang of Eight, on the operation that was conducted to detain and seize Maduro. Moving on from that, though, we have a lot of statements that came out of the U.S. government today. For one, we're now hearing that apparently Cuba's next. As the president did state word for word, Cuba looks ready to fall, so we don't know what that means, but apparently we're going to be starting a second war within the Caribbean, this time against Cuba. We've also been able to hear that apparently if the Venezuelans don't behave, we will do a second strike. That's also a word-for-word quote from the president. So apparently if they don't behave and they play with their food during supper and some other things, or if they dance on stage again, which is incredibly rude, they will get bombed again. So basically that's the statement for today on Venezuela. We also were able to hear that Colombia is run by a sick man, but he won't be doing it very long, suggesting that the U.S. is also planning on conducting a war with Colombia and also deposing its president and possibly overthrowing its government. He also stated that he offered to send U.S. troops to Mexico and to the Mexican president, and she's considering it, but is a little afraid. And we then were able to hear that the U.S. is also considering heavily the annexation of Greenland, or the military occupation of Greenland, which is a Danish territory. So basically we have the threats of 4 new wars starting. 3 of them against Central and South American states, and 1 of them against a NATO ally, which would be the Kingdom of Denmark. It's that's something. Anyways, moving on from that and out of Washington, we were able to hear that the Danish government did not really take that too lightly about the whole "we need Greenland" thing, and they made a whole bunch of statements. For one, Orla Jolson, who is actually, I believe, a citizen of the territory of Greenland, sent out the following. A statement from the Prime Minister of Denmark. I must say this very clearly to the United States. It makes absolutely no sense to speak of any necessity for the United States to take over Greenland. The United States has no legal basis to annex one of the 3 countries of the Kingdom of Denmark. The Kingdom of Denmark, and thus Greenland, is a member of NATO and is therefore covered by the Alliance's Collective Security Agreement. We already have a defense agreement between the Kingdom of Denmark and the United States that grants the U.S. broad access to Greenland. In addition, the Kingdom has made many significant investments in security in the Arctic. I therefore strongly urge the United States to cease its threats against a historically close ally and against another country and another people who have stated very clearly that they are not for sale. That was Mette Frederiksen, who is the Prime Minister of Denmark.
Insane. That's insane, by the way, that the U.S. is like seriously once again threatening action against Greenland like that. I mean, didn't Denmark just increase their defense spending to placate the United States? Because the United States was complaining that there's Russian and Chinese ships that are basically encircling the island of Greenland. So they were saying Denmark's not properly defending the island, so we need to take it. So Denmark then said, okay, we'll up the defense spending a lot to protect the island. And now we had a period of silence from the United States about Venezuela, or about Greenland, excuse me. And now the U.S. is returning back to it and saying, well, actually, we're going to take it anyway. It's like that we have to chill out. Like, do we really have to chill out about the situation here? To start threatening allies over taking their territory, that is delving into something there which is along the lines of what Russia is doing, and we should back off of this immediately.
I would agree. This needs to be backed off of, and in fact, an apology needs to be issued immediately to the Danish, because this is absolutely stupid. I don't understand it at all. Denmark doesn't give a damn about us being in Greenland. As a matter of fact, we have a large amount of facilities operated by the Air Force, the Space Force, and other branches that already are in Greenland. So, for all intents and purposes, we're already there. It's just that it's technically not a U.S. territory; it's a Danish territory. It's absolutely stupid to go and completely torpedo our diplomatic relations not only with Greenland, but probably the entirety of NATO by invading and annexing the territory of another NATO state. I'd also have to be honest with y'all, folks. The other threats of war that have been made at this point within the Caribbean and Central America make absolutely no sense. Cuba is dirt poor. They literally pose no strategic threat at all at the moment, and there isn't even a chance in the future where they could pose a strategic threat. So, to be entirely honest with y'all, it doesn't even matter if they stayed with the government that they have. It's not like it's going to make a strategic difference. Also dealing with Mexico is absolutely reckless. I don't even know why we would do that. Mexico is our largest trading partner as a singular nation anywhere in the world. We collectively trade nearly $1 trillion of goods with Mexico every single year in imports and exports, primarily in Mexican imports. So I do not understand why in the world we would want to try and mess with our largest trading partner, which is basically the size of the entirety of the European Union in a singular country, because that is going to end up devastatingly for the U.S. economy and also for Mexican stability. If we think that Mexico doesn't look stable right now, what would it look like if we completely create a Mexican governmental vacuum in the country and the cartels are basically the only force of order in the area? That would look horrendous. I mean, that would look even worse than what we're seeing right now. Destabilizing the Mexican government is clearly not the answer to dealing with the cartels. We ought to be offering them some form of support while allowing the Mexican government to continue to exist instead of basically saying, do what we want or we're going to come down there and oust you.
Yeah, but here's the problem though. Mexico, this isn't just political, folks. The cartels actually run Mexico. That's an open fact at this point. Everybody knows it. And the Mexican government tries to pretend like they're in charge, but in reality, though, the Mexican government is barely in charge of their country. And the lady who's currently in charge of Mexico is too scared to deal with the cartels. Now, I will say, yes, it is cowardly on one front, but at the same time, though, if you were in her shoes and you had all these vicious cartels literally knocking at your door, basically telling you, stand down or else. I mean, you might also not be so gung-ho about, going after cartels because they're literally able to find you and your family and wipe you out if they don't like what you're doing. So it's a whole nother ballgame when you're actually in that position. I'm not necessarily going to bash the Mexican president over that because, it's a little bit tricky. But at the same time, though, I mean, if the United States is trying to deal with a drug problem, which I'm not sure what they're doing at this point, I'm not sure if it's really about drugs or not, but if they're trying to deal with that, then the U.S. is going to have to take those head on, and the Mexican government is going to have to either shut up and sit down, or they're going to get caught in the mix.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, going down there and taking care of, getting rid of the Mexican government isn't really going to be helping out that situation at all. And if anything, it's going to be heavily disrupting the legal trade that we have with Mexico that's totaling around $1 trillion a year. And that alone would be devastating.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. It's just that's why I think generally everybody sort of like kicked the ball down the road or kicked the bottle down the road with Mexico over the cartel issue is because the cartels, number one, hold a hell of a lot of influence, even in the United States. So that's a huge problem. Also, it's hard to separate the Mexican government from the cartels because they're intertwined very closely. And, like you said, they are a huge trading partner. So messing with it, it's almost like too complicated to deal with it. So they just sort of let it be. And it sort of just existed that way for a long time. So unless there's something basically indicating that you have to go in on the ground right now to fix it, or otherwise the United States is going to have their national security at risk, most people just said, leave it alone.
Yeah, but I mean, like at the same time though, it would be absolutely devastating to go and do anything down there. Like the best thing we can do is just try and deal with them through a law enforcement sort of an avenue, but going down there and trying to militarily overthrow the Mexican government is only going to make things far worse in this situation. Like there's nothing that could come out of that that's better. So if we overthrow the Mexican government, then what? There's no actual legal order at that point in Mexico. We're literally opening it up for the cartels to legitimately run the show at that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're already running the show, really. I mean, the cartels run the place. The cartels, they have lots of money. They have lots of money. They have lots of guns. They even have missiles. I mean, the cartels got everything. I mean, they've got a lot of stuff. And you know, the U.S. has tried dealing with a couple of the big ones from time to time. Occasionally, they'll get one or two, but it never deals with the whole thing. It's like if you chop off the head of one, two more take its place. That's the way it works. So I'm just not sure. Like when you let a problem get as out of control as the cartel situation in Mexico has gotten over decades, it's like, you know, to clean that up, that's monumental. So if the U.S. is going to take that on, they have to deal with that situation on its own. They can't go take on Colombia, Cuba, Venezuela, Mexico. You have to pick one and fix it. You can't just pick a whole bunch of fights at once and start a shit show and then want to get scared later when it starts going sideways, because it surely will, because that's way too much to chew on at one time.
Yeah, but moving on from that, also the statements about Colombia are pretty goofy as well, because at least on that one, it's literally just the president doesn't like the guy. Is basically the explanation for the possibility of ousting him is that he's just kind of like a sick dude, and that's it. But you know what's kind of funny, folks, about that is that if you ever had an argument for going into a country because they're overridden by drug trade, it would literally be Colombia. That's where all the coca leaves come from, and that's basically where all the cocaine extraction and refining is done, is inside of Colombia. So you could literally
Yeah.
have the one argument here to actually go, yeah, we're going down there to deal with the drug trade. But this time, no, he doesn't go with that. He just sits there and says, the dude's kind of like a sick dude, and I think he's kind of like a creep, so I don't really like him. It's like, you literally had the drug argument to go with on that one, and then you use something completely different.
Yeah, and also, by the way, Venezuela only accounted for 20% of the cocaine being transported from South America to the United States. It was only about 20%. So that's why we had been saying, if the U.S. is trying to deal with the drug problem, naturally you'd want to start in Mexico or somewhere like that, and then you'd have to deal with all the other South American countries, which are heavily involved in as well after the fact. But they said, let's go pick Venezuela, let's go attack them first to stop the drug trade, and they only account for 20% of the cocaine being sent out, according to the numbers. So, I mean, it's just wild. Like, I'm just not sure. It seems like it's piecemeal. Like they're kind of like taking this like a piece at a time. They don't have like an overall grand architect strategy behind it. It's just all sort of playing it by ear.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. But not really the sort of situation you want to play something by ear, folks, is when you're the president of the United States and you're making major calls that can affect at least at a minimum 360 million people here in America, and then possible billions around the rest of the globe. So not really the kind of position where you just kind of like half-ass everything and wing it. And at this point, we've gotten into half-assery and winging things throughout the whole region. So not really that good looking. But anyways, moving on from that, we were able to hear, folks, that apparently, getting back around to what we were talking about early on air, which was actually the, Polkatator cards that Putin's been collecting. He's got an Assad, he might get a Khamenei, and he's actually kind of angry that he didn't get a Maduro. It actually appears that Russia and China are very unhappy about not getting a Maduro. But before we move on to that, though, we actually have a poll up on the very last thing that we were talking about. Matthew, what do we got on that? What are you thinking about it? And what is everyone else thinking about it as well?
Okay, so the question says the U.S. is currently threatening Colombia, Cuba, Mexico, and Greenland with possible military action over the last couple of days alone. So, what is going on? What is the United States trying to do by basically picking so many fights at once? 51% said the USA is getting way too carried away, while 21% said it depends on each case by case, and 22% said it's overdue, and I support all of it. So I will say, not to just constantly, I see a lot of people in the chat saying, this guy's just bashing the president. I don't bash everything that happens, by the way. There are good things that are done from time to time, but I'm not going to like shy away from calling a spade a spade. Like if something seems stupid, I'm going to say it's stupid. Picking fights with Colombia, Cuba, and Mexico and Venezuela all at the same time is stupid because number one, they can all unify into one coalition and fight us together. That creates a huge problem because you don't want them to ally with each other or they will fight. You don't want that. That's the last thing you want to do. That's why you deal with it a country at a time instead of letting them consolidate. So that's a huge error. Number two, we shouldn't be taking on such a massive operation amongst several different countries in South America like this while we have World War III beating down our door in Europe. We shouldn't be doing that. That's a huge problem too. So I think what's happening here is the U.S. is feeling basically on a high right now because they had a successful operation in Venezuela, which went actually very smoothly. In fact, it went extremely smoothly. It's a shock to most people how well that went, and I will give them credit for it. It was masterfully done, but you can't take that one success and then say, we'll just conquer the world. You can't do that. You can't equate that one success with everything else is going to go smoothly from that point forward. You got to be careful because we're dealing with very fragile situations here in geopolitics. So, and also the Greenland situation separately from all the stuff happening in South America. I don't even know what the hell we're doing threatening Greenland. That's crazy. We're literally threatening an ally while they're being threatened by Russia with invasion. We're basically scaring the hell out of Europe right now for I don't even know why. So I would say the USA is definitely getting carried away, and I'm with the 51%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm gonna say this up front, folks. This is the only night I'm gonna say this, and then we're just gonna move this on from here forward. I am never going to sit here again and have to justify to the chat that we're not political. I'm never doing that again. If you find the statement to be offensive because you look at the president as like a god or something, because a lot of people did that with Biden and a lot of people do that with Trump, where they can't err and there's never a failure, that you're gonna have to figure that out in your own time. We are completely unbiased here, and I'm not going to sit here and start getting hamstrung every single night and having to give a 5-minute disclaimer on every single thing because something's absolutely stupid, and it is stupid, and we're just going to call it for what it is. So if you don't like it, I suggest that you sit down with like a therapist and get like an appointment and figure it out with them, because I'm not going to be given the justification anymore that we're not political, because we do that endlessly, and people ought to understand that at this point, that the analysis is what it is. If it's a good call, it's a good call, and if it's bad, it's bad. So with that in mind, this is absolutely stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And on top of that, more primarily, the thing I don't really get is that everyone who's now with the president on the Holy Crusade to go and become basically the American empire was just a couple of weeks ago saying that he was the peace president and that the U.S. is going to be involved in no more stupid, useless wars. But now we're going to go get in a war with Colombia because the dude looks funny. We're going to go get in a war with Cuba because we just kind of, I don't know, like, we just don't like him. We're going to go get into Mexico and overthrow the government because they won't authorize us to go in and blow up the cartels because they're scared the cartels are going to kill them and their families. And then we're also going to go annex Greenland, although we're already in Greenland because we have an alliance with Denmark in the NATO alliance that allows us to be there. So it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. And I just got to say that it's really hard, folks, for people to go, oh, look at you, you're so political and yada yada, because the axis of what people work on changes so quickly because some guy says one thing one day and then something the other that it's impossible to even follow along with it. And I'm not some idiot, and I'm not some gimp on a leash. Like, some of y'all can be a gimp on a leash, and whoever's the president, like Biden or Trump, they can yank y'all around and change your opinion on a 180 in a day, but we don't do that here. Some wars have sense behind them and they're worth fighting, others don't. And the one with Colombia, I don't even get it. Like, we were going to fight the war on drugs. If we had shifted the whole thing from Venezuela over to Colombia, I would say, okay, that kind of does make sense because that is basically where all the drugs are manufactured, because that's the only area of the world that can really grow the coca leaf in large portions. So that makes sense. But if going to war with Mexico, which is our largest trading partner, it's not just black and white, like, oh, we don't like the cartels. There's a million moving mechanisms involved with doing anything to another country. You sit there and you take care of the cartels, and you've completely destroyed millions of American jobs because they don't have any more imports coming in because the border had to be shut down and there's no way to ship the stuff in. And so then you're sitting there up the shit creek without the paddle, and a lot of y'all are going to be out of a job while sitting there going, well, I might be broke and starving, and, my family can't eat, and my kids are starving to death, but damn it, we got those cartels. Good job. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then we're going to completely piss off the NATO alliance in Europe and basically boot ourselves out by taking a territory in the Arctic that we're already in a very large number. That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, it's getting carried away, and none of this makes any sense.
And there's a good case study for what happens when you do get carried away like this. Countries that believe that they're invincible, and the United States is the most powerful country on the planet, but we are not invincible, though. We do have our limits. Everybody's got a limit, and we do as well here in the United States. Russia didn't understand that either. Russia was doing somewhat semi-okay before they started the Ukraine war back in February of 2022. They were doing somewhat okay, but Vladimir Putin, in his all-knowing wisdom, thought that he could reconstitute the Russian Empire empire and become the new Russian czar or whatever he wants to call himself. And he invaded Ukraine and then thought, if I can take Ukraine, I'll just simply move on to the NATO states or the Baltics. And so this empire business can end up in a really horrific way. Where did it lead Russia? It's led them to destruction. Russia is literally on the brink of total collapse. That's how bad it's gone for Russia. So these countries, which consider themselves to be superpowers, they can fall from grace if stupid decisions are made. So you don't ever want to take that for granted. The fact that we're a powerful force in the world, you don't want to take that for granted and start testing it and start pushing the envelope, because it can change in an instant if you decide to go do stupid stuff like starting a conquest in Europe or starting a conquest across the entirety of South America. You have to be careful with stuff like that.
Also, on top of that, another thing that's a little bit important to remember, folks, because I just saw someone say, so you're saying that we ought to let the cartel thrive so that way we can save American jobs? Let me put it this way. Back in the day in America, the mob used to be a big thing. Still is around, but it used to be a huge thing. It basically ran New York City, Detroit, and Chicago. So here's what the U.S. could have done back then, because how dare you sit there and say that the U.S. is supposed to deal with the mafia light-handedly? I mean, we could have just built a giant wall around those cities and literally razed them to the ground and wiped out everyone in those cities, and the mafia would have been gone overnight. Does that mean that that's the way to deal with that? No, that's how an idiot would deal with it. You don't deal with something like that. You sit there and deal with it the way we dealt with it, which was a lot more light-handed than it could have been, because, we could have literally razed New York City to the ground and everyone in it to get rid of the mafia, and that would have worked. The mafia would have been gone, but that would have been an absolutely stupid way of dealing with it, and that also would have been absolutely atrocious. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to sit there and say, you know what? Sure, everyone in America is going to be in an economic depression because we're going to go and mess with our largest trading partner, but let's go down there and deal with the cartels. Because I'll tell you this, good hopes and thoughts and prayers don't feed kids, and they don't feed me. And so I'm just going to be entirely honest with you all. If it comes down to Americans having jobs to have some money to be able to get by day to day and pay their rent versus the cartels existing, I'm probably going to go with the idea of people having enough money to pay rent instead of the cartel getting obliterated. I'm just going to be entirely honest on that. The way you deal with the cartel is that you bolster the Coast Guard and the Border Patrol, and that's it. There you go. There's your answer. They can't ship anything into America, or it's going to be incredibly difficult, and they're going to start bleeding for business. That's how you do it. You don't have to sit there and get involved in obliterating massive trade relations to try and deal with the cartel. That's like saying there's a spider in your house, so let's burn down the whole damn building to get the spider. That's stupid. You're going to be out of a house, and sure, the spider will be gone, and it won't be able to bite you, but you're out of a house, and you don't have anything left. Literally all of your possessions just burned down in that house. That's a stupid way of dealing with something. So I know that a lot of people don't really get the nuance with that. And then they want to bring up goofy stuff like, do you support the cartels? Obviously not. But at the same time, it's a lot more complicated than you're making it out to be, because some people, like you, and who I'm addressing, make stuff out to be like a second grader, simple sort of an equation to where bad thing, bad, we take out bad thing, good thing happen. That's not how it works. There's a million different things involved in this. So, before someone else tells me I don't know what's going on, also look at what's going on with Venezuela. They got rid of Maduro, and they said, oh, now it's all over. We've won. We're going to bring in a U.S. occupation, and we're going to start bringing a peaceful transition of power. The Venezuelan government is just actively resisting. Maduro's gone, but it's basically like he's still there. So now we're having to figure out how to deal with that. We had a great plan to go get him, and I'll say the military operation was unbelievable and wildly impressive, and truly something of its age. It'll be talked about for decades, centuries from now even. But still, that doesn't fix the whole foreign policy quagmire we just got in of the Venezuelans are still resisting, which wasn't expected, and now we got to figure out where to go from here. So, obviously, you don't have to be in, say, the CIA or Washington, D.C. to have an idea of what's going on. You can just look at something and say, that doesn't really look like there was a good plan or a large sort of an overarching idea of what we're going to be doing there. And also for the people in here, they're like, there's some, also by the way, like there's some crazy nuts in here. They're like, we should take over everything. They're crazy and they got to go. But at the same time, though, for the people saying, well, we disagree with you guys because we should deal with these problems. I'm not saying that we shouldn't deal with the problems. I'm just simply saying that we should be careful about how we're going about it. We should not be taking on multiple countries at the same time. That's not a good idea. I'm not sure how we can argue that that is a good idea. I mean, somebody explained to me how taking on Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, and Cuba, and potentially even more than that in South America at the same time is a smart idea, because
I mean, what if you were in those countries' shoes? What are you going to do? You're naturally going to unify, so that way you can fight the United States. You have to, because those countries alone can't take on the United States. They know that, so they are naturally going to be forced to consolidate. So somebody explain to me how that is somehow a good idea for the United States to take on all these fights at once, and how is that going to lead to anything good for us? It's not, and I don't see any argument to the contrary.
Also, we have literally no relations with Cuba in any way, not even in tourism. We don't have hardly any relations with Colombia, and we're already in Greenland. So why in the world do we need to take Greenland if we're already there? That's like saying we need to invade and annex Germany to put bases in Germany. There's a million bases in Germany that we're at. Why would we need to do that? That makes no sense. And on top of that, with Cuba, we literally have no trade with them. We have absolutely no relations with them diplomatically. There's no tourism that goes there. They're basically non-existent. It's like they don't even exist. So what's the point of going down there and dealing with them? Like if it posed some sort of a strategic threat, then I'd be for it. But they don't, because nobody can even come to the Americas from China or Russia to set up any facilities there at all, and they probably never will be able to from this point on. So why do we need to do that? And why do we need to deal with Colombia? Because we know that Venezuela, it wasn't to deal with the cartels, it was to go get the oil now. We know that for sure, because the president literally said that. So why do we need to deal with Colombia now? Because apparently drug busting isn't our top priority, and it never was, apparently. So with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, but it doesn't make any sense. Nevertheless, we were able to see that the U.S. did conduct another little looking at the Bella 1 today, which is apparently near to the west coast of Ireland. It has actually successfully fled the U.S. Blockade and the U.S. Coast Guard, and appears to be making its way back to Russia. It has now been renamed as the Marinera and is Russian flagged, and appears to be heading towards the North Sea, which we would assume means that it's going towards a port like Murmansk or Arkhangelsk or somewhere else within that area. Moving on out of that, though, we also were able to see that within the area of Ansbach, or more so the Katterbach Army Aviation Base, it appears that the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment is hiring. Would any of y'all like a job?
That's crazy. They're hiring. Also, by the way, I think they're heading down to the Middle East next, by the way. I'm not sure if they're planning a similar operation with the Ayatollah as they did with Maduro, but I think they're heading that way.
It does sound like they're heading that way, that's for damn sure, and we'll have to see what they're doing down there. But, you know, if y'all want a job, they are hiring. I've heard, folks, that if you print out a resume on, like, red construction paper with maybe, like, yellow text or something, and you walk in and you look them in the eye and you give them a firm handshake, they'll give you the job. So just make sure to do that, and y'all might be working with the 160th SOAR in no time. Moving on from that and out of Germany, which is where they're based out of, we are going to be moving on into also, by the way, I have to cover a little bit of additional news from East Asia before we get on into the war in Ukraine. North Korea has apparently announced that they conducted the launch of several hypersonic missiles on Sunday in a ceremony attended by the Supreme Leader Fatty. So we're waiting to see what that's about, but we don't believe that even happened. Because what's a little bit interesting about that is that happened last night. They made the announcement today, but the Japanese tracked those missiles. And from what we understand, hypersonics are incredibly difficult to track with any sort of a radar. So the Japanese tracked them with a radar, so we're assuming they might not be hypersonic. And if they are hypersonic, then that also means that they apparently aren't that hard to produce, like a lot of people think. You know, like, hypersonic missiles are not that hard to make, honestly, folks. If North Korea can pump one out, anyone can make one, and they're not even that big of a threat. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And moving on out of North Korea, we also were able to hear that the U.S. is apparently threatening, and I think this is rightfully so, to raise tariffs on India if they do not stop purchasing Russian oil. Now, this is one that I can get behind, because it's absolutely ridiculous that the Indians sat there and were middle of the fence the entire war, and now they want to jump straight into BRICS, and there are consequences to follow with that. So currently, the U.S. is threatening to raise tariffs on India if they do not stop their purchases of Russian oil, and hopefully we'll see the tariffs will be leveraged or levied against India, considering that they're continuing to violate U.S. sanctions against Russian oil that they're continuing to receive. So hopefully we'll see
Hopefully
that.
so.
Oh yeah, I would say
Hopefully so, honestly, because at this point, with how India's blatantly jumping on the Russian side like they're doing, which the reason why they did that, in theory, is because the U.S. had slapped tariffs on them, so that was enough to make Modi side with a war criminal, apparently, which is insanity, to say the least. They ought to try to dismantle the Indian economy at this point, because if India is going to be a true traitor and an enemy of the West, then, you know, they're enemies at this point.
Yeah, I would have to agree, and hopefully we'll see that tariffs will be leveraged against the Indians, because I'll be entirely honest with y'all, the Indians as a nation have left a very sour taste in my mouth after covering them in the India-Pakistan border war, and also with how they've been conducting themselves in foreign policy. I'm not really a big fan of India any longer. And so with that, we are going to be moving on out of the Indian subcontinent, and moving on into the area of Europa, because we do have a lot of news coming out of the war in Ukraine. Moving us on into the area, we were able to hear that the city of Moscow was being overrun with drones. You can see one of them right here. Oh, that's a Liudi. Nice.
That's a fast one.
Oh yeah, it's the fast one. This actually led to all Russian aircraft in the Moscow area being grounded, and the ones that were attempting to land had to be diverted to surrounding airports. And you can see the long queues of people here waiting at the airport, considering that their flights were completely grounded and were not taking off due to the active drone attack. Further south, things didn't go as well as they did in Moscow. In the area of the Lipetsk Oblast, we were able to confirm that a large thermal power plant was actually hit and knocked out by Ukrainian fire.
What?
What? Blah. Wow. Oh my God.
I heard that this was allegedly a battery factory, too. Apparently they made batteries or something to that effect.
Well, man, I guess the Ukrainians just conducted a battery on them because that thing is toasted.
Камера приближаться умеет.
Oh, look, does anybody see that bunny with the bass drum? It's smacking on the bass drum. Bing, 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 bing.
Bing, bing, bing.
They call him the Energizer.
Камера приближаться умеет.
Well, that's the
They
end of
lobbed
that.
a missile on it. They said a bing, bing, bang. They said it blew up.
I would really like a nice scoop of Bing chilling. It would be very nice to have right now. But anyways, moving on from that, the Ukrainians did conduct a major drone attack on the country. We'll hopefully get damage assessments in far greater detail over the course of the next day. Now, with that, folks, it's time for us to finally move on into the war in Ukraine. Moving us on into our location unknowns, we got a couple of interesting ones. First, the Russians are now arming Shahed drones with Igla manpads. I've never seen something like that in my life. So this is now an air defense drone. So they can fly these around, and they actually apparently have rigged it to where they can fire the Igla and get a lock while this thing is in flight. I don't know how that works, but that's what the Ukrainians are claiming. They found this one actually crashed inside of Ukraine, and I'm believing, folks, that this might be their attempt to try and go up against Ukrainian F-16s and other aircraft that they've been using to shoot down these drones, is by equipping some of them with an Igla, and then trying to fire it at those aircraft once they get close. Only problem with that, though, folks, is that these drones fly in the middle of the night. It's literally pitch black, so unless they have some form of an infrared camera on this thing, they're not going to be able to even see the aircraft that are attacking this thing before it's too late. So I don't really think this thing is going to be wildly effective, but we'll see. Anyways, we also were able to hear that apparently the Ukrainians were, sorry everyone, that one was apparently a little spicy. It wasn't spicy to me when I watched it earlier, but a little Ukrainian gun drone rolled up on some Russians and was clearing them out, nice style, Ukrainian style. But with that, we are going to be getting on into the Russian casualty report. And it was a pretty good one.
Man, it's been like a dry spell out here for Bobcats. They haven't gotten a single piece of special equipment in days.
Man, it's turning into a drought, kind of like in Tehran. Oh, man. But anyways, Miss Disa, keeper of the records, did state, a low loss day across the board. Must be the weather and focus on other events. But drones are almost UAVs are almost 10,000 or 100,000, and that is absolutely correct. And over the course of the past 24 hours, we were able to see that 900 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 88 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 12 artillery pieces, 278 drones, and 1 anti-aircraft missile system. It wasn't really the biggest days of losses that we've seen, at least recently, but we still got some interesting footage from the front. Moving us on down towards the areas just outside of the hills of Bakhmut, we did get to see some Russians under a drone attack. Let's take a look. They're in the Buhanka, dashing through the snow, quite literally.
Look at them go.
Man, they're kind of packed in there like a clown car, honestly. It would be a shame if an FPV hit them. Oh! Why, everyone leaving so soon? But the fun was about to start, everyone. Oh! Oh! Oh my God! Did you see that?
I did.
Oh my God. Holy moly.
Oh! Oh my God. Holy smokes.
That guy didn't really sound that enthusiastic about it. He just went, ah! Like, it's like, bro, he's like, he didn't really have that much time for this. But that gives you a little bit of an idea.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say, you can say that twice, but that's what drone warfare is kind of looking like these days, for the Russians at least, out there in Ukraine. I got to tell y'all, it doesn't really look like a picnic, that's for sure. But moving on out of that area of the front, and moving on down into the area of Novopavlivka, we also get to see the Ukrainians apparently not slamming some Russians, but we were able to see them slamming, oh, well, heavens, everyone. I mean, I was looking at these clips, I thought they were just lickety-split just fine, but apparently, a lot of them are a little bit spicy. I guess, folks, after doing this for 1,411 days, my eyes are getting kind of a little bit blind to what I'm actually watching, because apparently these are a little spicy. But moving on out of that area and further on south and into the Zaporizhia front, we were able to see the 92nd getting in a little firefight. Now, this clip is actually fine to show, and I made sure of that because it's 5 minutes long. So now that we've pretty much blasted straight through the cross front because we couldn't show any of those clips, we're now down in the Zaporizhia front, and we'll show y'all what the 92nd is up to today. Oh, muting that.
Music. I don't know why they do this. They put in that music and we have to mute the whole thing.
Oh, but we could see them wandering around. The top part of the screen is blurred for operational security purposes.
Also, by the way, for the people asking, the fundraiser is sitting at just about $6,500 raised, by the way. So we're creeping up slowly to $7,000, which is obviously crazy work because the fundraiser goal was only $2,500.
Man, I'm telling you, that's crazy right there. Oh, man. You see the Ukrainians rolling on through the rubble and making their way on into a building. We see one of the Ukrainian soldiers firing out of the opening with what appears to be a machine gun.
Also, Tank Gunner said, how many new subscribers have you had on this stream alone? We've had probably about 1,000 so far on the stream, subscribers actually. So speaking of which, if you haven't already and you find the news informative tonight, smack the subscribe button as well, because we do these every single night except for Monday. Also, we put out videos midday as well, sometimes too when there is breaking news. So we'd appreciate you as a subscriber.
Yes, please join us. We'd be happy to have you all. Oh, they threw one in. Oh, heavens. And we see them also here wandering into this building. Another one, making sure to clear it. And we see them making sure to doubly clear it. They're clearing it well. Man, another one bites the dust. We can see them continuing to clear out the building.
You know, honestly, I'll take it as a badge of honor whenever we have someone come in here and say, is this clickbait? I mean, the news is so fresh. It's so brand new. Like nobody's ever seen this news before that they believe it's clickbait. And that's how close we are at being first to the story almost every single time is that people don't even think it's real half the time until they jump in here and listen to it.
Yeah. Or, you know, we give foreign policy analysis and it's just straight up, you know, it's like, I don't really think that's a good idea. And then someone puts in that usual TDS, or back in the day, it used to be MAGA, like Nazis or something like that before Trump became president. When Biden was president, we were like, that's not really a good idea. It was like raging MAGA Nazi or something like that would be in the chat. And now it's TDS. So I know we're doing a good job, because we're definitely not political stooges, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm not a stooge, political or anyways. I'm no stooge.
Actually, I'm a Scrooge. To hell with Christmas. Oh, man. Oh, man. When you see them getting the prisoners out of the basement.
I think they're getting them out of the closet.
They're coming out of the closet. Oh.
Well.
Oh, man.
Come on out. It's okay. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Come out. You'll have your dignity. Please leave.
So also, someone said, "What's TDS?" Everyone knows what MAGA Nazi is. Like, I don't even have to explain that one because that's self-explanatory. But TDS actually stands for Trump Derangement Syndrome, and basically these days the move is by people who like are diehards of the president is that if you ever say any of his actions appear to be questionable and they might not be the best move, and you offer a better alternative, basically achieving the same thing but just in a different way, which is what we do here on air. You can see the prisoners right here, by the way. They're all alive, just to make that clear. But basically, if you say that there's a better way to do something, or it might not be good to do that, and it's best advisable not to, they basically say that you have a mental illness because you say that something isn't a good idea. So that's what that means, and it's really stupid because it's like basically what they're saying is that you're mentally ill if you ever disagree with anything, and it's like, how the hell does that even work? It's like, do they go through their lives like lobotomized and just act like everything's great? I don't even understand it. But anyways, we can see them here continuing to move on after processing the prisoners. And we see them moving the prisoners on out.
Me personally, I've never really understood the problem with TDS. It's a simple measurement for the solids that are in a liquid, like water and things like that, like total dissolved solids. I've never understood why people go around saying that constantly. I guess we have a lot of water enthusiasts in the chat.
Man. And then someone says, "It sure seems like you're being political." I don't give a damn, like, what you think. Like,
I wouldn't keep it trusted, to be honest. You're feeding those trolls. You're feeding trolls like people feed ducks. They keep coming back.
I'm just being straight up. I don't really give a damn. Our no politics rule is up to our own interpretation. So if you don't like it, get lost. Like, that's my run of the mill sort of an answer for you.
Oh dear, look at this. This was a gathering here. It looks like this gathering was broken up by a very, very loud mosquito. Happened to be a drone.
Man, I'd have to say, not really good for him. That means very appropriate.
Hey, Mr. Krabs. Hey.
Oh, man. Mr. Krabs, man, they got him. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on out of Venezuela, and we're actually going to be moving on up into Ukraine, into the capital of Ukraine, at Kyiv, because it's time for the speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. And so with that, hopefully the website loads. It always takes a while. And so
they
with
have
that,
DDoS protection.
They do, and they have some incredibly strong ones. So, without further ado, here's the speech. Peach!
Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, шановні українки. Продовжуємо сьогодні внутрішні зміни в Україні. Кожна має посилити нашу державу, нашу українську стійкість. 5 обласних адміністрацій. Сьогодні я провів співбесіди з кандидатами. Вінницька область, Дніпровщина, Полтавщина, Тернопільська область, Чернівецька область. Потрібні сильні очільники, щоб і громади підтримати і мати змогу допомагати іншим нашим регіонам, які цього дійсно потребують. Лідерство на місцевому рівні має таке ж серйозне значення, як і на рівні центральної влади. Я вдячний тим, хто в регіонах працював дійсно відповідально. Прізвища нових очільників будуть, коли почнуться формальні процедури призначення. На наступному тижні вже в адміністраціях мають бути відповідні керівники. Говорив сьогодні з прем'єр-міністром України Юлією Свириденко. На завтра готується засідання Кабінету міністрів України. Важливо, щоб зміни продовжувалися. Сьогодні ж детально працювали на безпековому напрямку. Державна прикордонна служба України буде змінюватись. І ми обговорили також з міністром внутрішніх справ України Ігорем Клименком відповідні напрямки змін. Продовжимо завтра. Готуємось вже і до наступного дипломатичного тижня. Будуть зустрічі в Європі, які мають стати для України ще одним внеском у наш захист і у наближення закінчення війни. До обох варіантів подальшого розвитку подій Україна підготується. Дипломатія, яку ми забезпечуємо, чи подальша активна оборона, якщо тиску партнерів на Росію виявиться недостатньо. Україна прагне миру, але сили своєї Україна нікому не віддасть. Я дякую всім, хто працює на нашу державу і хто захищає Україну як себе самого. Слава Україні!
And the rum
Hiram
slava.
Slava.
He was talking with that volume and that presence today. And I got to say, that is the end of the speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1,411 of the news from around the world. And it's time for us to get on into the second segment of the stream, folks, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, what a fun time it's going to be, because this is the time that we get to the very few super chats that we've gotten tonight, and then all the live chats that we can handle. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet, but better, because we get to talk to y'all. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so with that, let me get one more bot. We've had like bot galore in here tonight, by the way, like people going crazy, saying all kinds of things against America, saying things against Ukraine. It's been bot central tonight. I think the Ruski bot farms are back out in force, and also possibly even the Iranian bot farms are out too. But anyways, though, it's time to address our last poll of the stream here, and then jump into our questions, of course. And the poll says, both China and Russia have strongly demanded the release of Nicolas Maduro in a dual statements. And do you think they will retaliate soon for Maduro being captured? 68% said no, they are simply virtue signaling, while 18% said yes, China and Russia will escalate, and 9% said it's a 50-50 chance of escalation. So China nor Russia is going to do a damn thing. Here's why. They simply need to make sure the other dictators around the world that are allied with their countries, Russia and China, they want to send the message that they stand in solidarity with them, because they don't want to totally abandon Maduro, because that might send a bad message. That might make it look like they simply abandoned him and let him get captured, and that was the end of it, and they didn't even protect their guy. And the truth is, they didn't protect their guy. Their guy got nabbed. They didn't do a damn thing about it. And Russia and China now just get to sit back and have another ally fall down the tubes at this point. So they're not going to do anything. It's simply virtue signaling, as they call it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say they generally are virtue signaling. There's nothing that China and Russia can do about this at all, unless they want to try and do something trade-related. And in that sense, Russia has no hand. And in the Chinese sense, the Chinese would have a little bit of hand, but it would be equally destructive to themselves to try and use it. So generally, they're virtue signaling. There's not really a lot that they can do. It's just that Putin's sad that he can't have another failed dictator hang out with him in Moscow and listen about Rinky Dink the Wise. Putin's sitting there, "Oh yes, Maduro, welcome to my tea room, where I sit here at tea time with all my friends." And I told them about Rinky Dink. Tonight we have Assad, we have Khamenei. Bibi, better not mess with my nuclear shit. And then we have Maduro. Oh, where is he? Where's they took him? Oh no! Oh man, I gotta say, I can't. I think, folks, Putin's dinner table has got to be one hell of a spot, folks, because before long, you're going to have all these cool faces and names. And when I mean cool, I mean that very sarcastically. As in the fat bastard from North Korea. You're going to have Assad from Syria, who's already there. Khamenei's about to join him. And then you might one day have Maduro, maybe. That's probably an unlikely one. Maybe even Petro. I would say that one's really stupid to even try and go on that one. But maybe Petro will show up. And then, hell, they might even have the corpse of Fidel Castro at the table as well. So, I mean, they're really starting to rack up a nice table up there. Next thing you know, Mao Zedong, Adolf Hitler, and Joseph Stalin will be resurrecting. They'll also be hanging out with them as well. It's like the table of badass, well, not a little badass, but bad bastards. It's the best way to put it. Man, I said badass. I was like, that is not the right term. But the bad bastard table in Moscow is apparently where everyone's going to be heading. So, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. But I would have to say that they're generally just virtue signaling. There's no way in hell that they can do anything about it. And also, what are they going to do? Come bust him out of the jail in New York City? I mean, let's be real. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, it is now time to jump into our question segment, by the way. But also, I want to ask y'all a question real quick, because I've been working on a project in the background, and I've come up with a concept in my head for a new patch. And once again, this is just something that's like a rough mock-up that I've been thinking about and I've done. Unfortunately, I sent you the picture on Discord, by the way, if you want to show the people this real quick. Once again, this is like a concept that I just came up with in my head and grabbed some random images and threw it together. I just wanted to see what the audience thought about something like this, because obviously if it's something that people like, I would have to go through a lot more work to actually make this a proper design where it actually looks good and is not shabbily put together like it is right here. But what do y'all think of that, by the way? It's a concept patch if it's on the screen, because I can't see it.
Oh yeah, it's on the screen, and there it is. Where'd you get the boogeyman from?
Well, I don't want to say that really. Also, by the way, I would not be using that boogeyman on the final design right there. That came from a place, which I can't really say where that came from, to be perfectly honest. But it's a man.
Like Zoink Scoop. It
Whoa,
looks like a man.
hold up a minute.
Ruh-roh, Raggy.
I wouldn't be using that on the final one. That's just I had that idea in my head. I had to have some boogeyman that kind of looked like that a little bit, so I had to have something. So I grabbed that. That was the first thing that popped in my head a little bit. And I was like, that'll work temporarily, like as a placeholder, but I would not be using it as the final one. So just to make that perfectly clear. But also, you might notice some people are saying the flag is crooked. The flag is not actually crooked. I just did a very poor design of like doing the cutout, like to put it on the circle. It's very rough. Like everything in this thing is rough. It's just like a rough mock-up of what it could look like, but this thing needs a hell of a lot of work. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I see some people saying it's all right. I would agree with you. It is all right in this shape. It's definitely nowhere near close to being done. So this is the idea. So we want to have a patch at some point in the future, that just like a cool morale patch that looks something like this. But I think the guy needs to be a little less creepy looking, to be perfectly honest, because this is a little too much over the top. I think I want it to look a little mysterious, but I don't want it to look like, like we got a creep on the patch or something like that. We don't want quite like that bad. But Enforcer, what do you say?
You know what I would say for like an OSINT sort of a thing? I think the best sort of a thing that you could do instead of like the neighborhood watch dude, like it's like I think it's something that would be really cool, because this actually would kind of be in line with it and kind of like be like symbolically like very much in line with this. Would be like Atlas holding the globe and just do the part with his head and arms up, because Atlas an Atlas as a thing is basically just a collection of maps and some information about geography and stuff like that around the world. But with the Atlas here, with the guy, it not only does that, but it also kind of will look like it goes hard if it was illustrated properly within like that roundel. One other thing that I would do is I get rid of the red stars, because when I see those, man,
those are placeholders. It's not Soviet. It's just a placeholder.
because man, like I was looking at those earlier. I was like, so are we like getting into like the teachings of Chairman Mao? I was like,
Also, real quick, by the way, I see people saying, what does a Latin phrase at the top mean? I wanted a Latin phrase. To be honest, I don't really have a good Latin phrase in my head yet, so I just wrote into the translator, guardian of the truth, and that's what that translates to in Latin. So I need a better phrase, though, because it turns out this right here is actually something associated with religious statements, apparently. I didn't know that when I actually put that on the patch. So we'd need a better Latin phrase to go on there. Also, by the way, I'm taking my inspiration from top secret project patches that are out there in the public. There's a thing when people are involved in secret projects, they usually create a patch. It's something that's informal. They do it to basically boost morale, because they don't get to talk about what they do. So they do it to build morale, and they have the guys in the unit that's actually working on the project develop the patch, and they design it themselves and make it. And they're usually kept secret until the project's over. So that's where I'm taking my inspiration from, by the way. You can pull up those patches all over the internet, by the way. If you punch in like top secret military patches, that's where I'm getting my inspiration from.
Yeah, like I like the idea. But I would think that, like, I don't know what y'all would think, folks in the chat, but I think that like the Atlas dude, like in a very stylized looking way, like we could have one custom made, that would look really cool, and also it would be in the like, kind of like the open source kind of intelligence sort of a realm, because that's kind of what Atlas is associated with in mythology, and also as like an actual Atlas book. So I feel like that would be like kind of like on brand.
Yeah, I would say so. Also, by the way, jump onto the internet real quick, type in on your Google search right there, and see about the top secret military patches. And let's see, like, if you see one that pops out at you, because I'm trying to get some inspiration for what I can do to make it better or make a different one.
Let's see here. Oh boy.
Also, by the way, if you're wondering I can tell you who the guy is on that patch I put on there. That guy is the puppet master. There's a reason I put a symbolic figure like that on there like that. He's the puppet master from the cartoon that he comes from. So there was a reason behind putting that on there, but I don't like the actual creepiness of it. It's a little bit too creepy. I need to tone that down a little bit. I need to like tone down the ditty on this one here, or whatever he's got going on. Need to kind of like, bring that down a notch.
Man, this blood be going, hey buddy, are you going home alone? Like it's like, oh, it's like I'm scared. All right, so let's take a look at these top secret patches. All right. We got the Gorgon. That's all right. All right, we got the squirrel. All right.
Oh, top secret chipmunk.
You know we could do a marmot.
We could do a marmot.
And then we got this one. All right. That's
the B-21.
Are you sure?
I think.
That looks like a B2 to me. That's three, that's three little vents at the back of the fuselage. I think the B-21 only has two. And then, all right. Operation
right
Blood
there.
Feather.
Hey, you don't want to know about that one.
Man, we got that feather and we soaked it in blood because we're hard. Man. Oh, man. And then we got the secret squirrel. That's cool.
Like that.
I kind of like the smiley face, dude. Actually, that's actually kind of like striking, really.
That patch in the middle, the Grim Reapers one, I believe that's the drone division that's out of Nevada, I think.
Is that the Grim Reaper?
Also, that one on the right that says that has the nuclear explosion on it. That's the I think the nuclear testing group that's in Nevada too that put that one out.
Huh. Those are interesting. Alone and unafraid. Why does that sound like something that you'd say to like a home invader? Like they're like, I'm coming up there to get you. Oh yeah, well I'm alone and unafraid. Like it's like, come and get me, boy. But let's see. Okay, and then we got a wizard. Is that the Salt Lake City wizard? You know, the one that kind of like wanders around?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm doubting it. And then they got this dude. Damn, that little freaky alien. He got a choker on.
That's bull. That's total bull right there. It's not even a real patch.
Man, I like
they do have him on a leash. They got him on a leash.
Bro, they got that freaky alien with a choker. Yeah, with a leash attached. Oh my god. Oh man, and then at the bottom, dude, someone decided that an alien language is basically just like whatever you can type in on the keyboard, italicized, and then put J behind it. Oh my god. This one cracks me up. And then we got, let's see. Oh, we got this one.
They're getting carried away with some of these right here. This one's for the satellite divisions that work on the spy satellites and stuff like that. Also, that one with the dragon holding the Earth, by the way, that's another satellite one, I believe. They have the dragon. And some of these get a little bit, a little bit like satanic looking a little bit. It's like I think they went a little overboard with some of these.
The Urban Crime Suppression Unit. I don't think that
Who the
thing's
hell's
suppressing crime. I think that thing is making crime. That thing looks like he's about to throw a haymaker at someone.
Man, that's the thug causing the problems right there on the patch.
Bro, and then we got the Panther Den. This is right next door to the Cougar Den. That's where Chris's mom hangs out. But we also have the Stingray here.
A Stingray, look at that.
Oh wow, look
Delta
at that.
Kilo.
We got
DK.
we got this bird.
Interesting. Look at that. Low observables, F-22.
I'm not gonna
Just
lie.
passing through.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of these patches are kind of setting the bar a little low. Like,
1 decibel. Wait a minute. Surely they're not saying that they flew the F-22 low enough that it was only at 1 decibel, like the noise from the jet. That's bull.
No, like that didn't happen. I don't think anything affiliated with Bosnia is going to be. Like
things are heating up. That's what it says at the bottom of the patch.
Yo,
this is wild,
dude. Some blood out there near Sarajevo going, oh yeah, this is going to go hard. It's like, nah, the war crimes are kind of killing this one. But let's see. Then we got this one. This is some Power Ranger shit, right? Bro, that's it. Bro, they sit there and show this one, and then some dude does some hand signals. He turns into like the pink Power Ranger or something. Like, I don't even get this one.
Don't just get cringy. I think like some people have a lot of time on their hands and get a little cringy. That's a fake one.
Yeah, but it's one hell of a one, that's for sure. And then we got, what the hell's up with this dog?
Ghoul. Look at that ghoul looking over the Earth. That one down there in the bottom. You see that one right there? That one right there is like the ghoul looking at the Earth, like the guy in the hat. Yeah, that one right there. I kind of like that one a little bit right there.
Bro, he kind of getting a little like weird with that though. He's kind of like leaning over and in. Like, I don't like that pose. Kind of like a
man. You know what he's saying? You know what he's saying? Looking at the Earth like that.
What?
Ain't nothing like a Diddy party.
Man,
he's looking at the United States.
Bro, if for some reason, man, if it, like he's looking at the other side of the globe, which I'm guessing he is, he's looking into like the middle of the Pacific. Well, what the hell's up with this globe, dude? There's like nothing on that other side of the globe because look, this is where India's at, And then right over here, it's Southeast Asia. So apparently the whole world behind this on this globe that they illustrated doesn't exist. It's just ocean or something.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Space Force patches are pretty cool. Let me pull those up. Space Force Delta patches. Let me find some of these. These are pretty cool looking. Like, they make them kind of simplified in some cases. Like, this is Space Delta 9. But these look pretty neat to me. Like, I think they're pretty cool looking.
What did they just rip off, like, Star Trek or something? It's like the Federation's patches, like, that they're putting on this.
Star Trek ripped them off because this actually used to be a symbol for the U.S. Air Force's space division, and then Star Trek ripped it off. So that's actually where Star Trek got it from.
It goes hard, though. Whoever made it, it goes pretty hard. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, man, the Space Force has really cool patches. Like, I'm not going to lie, folks, they have some really impressive ones. I actually know some of the folks who got these as their, well, actually, I know, so the better way to put it is that I know folks who know the folks who actually won these patch competitions and got these as the patch. Like, Space Delta 18 is pretty cool looking. Like, that one's pretty neat. But a lot of them are really cool. There's one, though, that's a heritage patch that they're not getting rid of because it's kind of, like, goofy and it's really funny. And I forgot whose it is, but it is hilarious. Like, if y'all saw it, y'all would die laughing. But let me see if I can, like, let's see, this isn't one of theirs, actually. I'm trying to find
Isn't
the
this
one.
all their patches? Like, pretty much all their patches are for satellite brigades or satellite units, aren't they?
No. Actually, they have, like, ground communications patches, orbital warfare patches. They have a whole bunch of stuff that actually comes into the command of the Space Force outside of satellites. I know folks, actually, just to, like, kind of, like, let y'all know, I know folks generally all across the Space Force. It's probably one of the branches that I talk to the most. But it's, they got everything in the Space Force. I mean, quite literally.
Yeah, but most of their patches are for, like, the satellite stuff, from what I can tell, at least. I've barely seen anyone. I'm talking about the ground forces yet.
Yeah,
What's
but
that, ape?
Huh?
What is that, ape?
Oh, that's just the boogeyman. We don't talk about that one. Like, bro, he's just on his way to the fridge. He's trying to find something to eat at 1 in the morning.
He's holding a freaking aim. What is that, an aim 9?
He's holding a lightning bolt and a small shield.
Oh, it looked like a freaking missile.
I'm not gonna lie, the one with the Greek warrior in the middle. I don't know what city state, folks, but that one's pretty cool looking.
That is pretty neat. What's up with the Drake owl on that one on the left?
Oh, they use that's actually Vanos, Matthew, Vanos Gaming, and yeah, it's just what they do. Oh man, let's see. What other cool ones do they have? We could go pull up like Army intelligence patches. That could get some ideas. Like Army intelligence patches. Hopefully they're not bad. I mean they're not that bad.
I don't like these.
They're not awe-inspiring. How about let's see. How about what other CIA intelligence patches? How about that? Do they have any? Oh, it's just the CIA. Yeah, you know,
They
I
don't
would
put
think.
patches out.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I just realized that when we pulled it up, I was like, oh yeah, they don't do patches. Let's see. Who in the world else would do patches that we could get some inspiration from?
I think the NSA might have a couple of patches.
What the hell is this one?
Hmm.
They said, bro, we put in the globe in an A-frame.
Honestly, it's like for most of the NSA stuff, it's like a bunch of server engineers and people like that, like technicians and stuff. So I guess they could have like a server rack on the patch.
Man, oh look, the Bahrain patch.
Bahrain Naval Support Activity. What's this have to do with the NSA?
Oh, like it just showed up on Google. The truth is in the noise.
That's true, but they kind of put it a little bit cringy.
Man, that would be like us saying, the news is on the screen. like you turn it on. Gee, you know, I'm trying to think. Honestly, man, the Space Force is kind of winning out right now. How about we go pull up Air Force?
What about Delta Force?
Oh, we don't talk about them. They don't get we don't get to know anything about them hardly. The Air Force has got some okay ones. But I actually think, man, I think the best place to get inspiration right now, no joke, is actually the Space Force. Probably.
I think so. I'll have to take them for inspiration. I've just literally started on that today, folks. I was literally driving the car to go get food for supper, and I thought that idea in my head, the one with the boogeyman on it. And I was like, I got to come back and quickly do a mock-up of that. And I did a super quick mock-up. I literally thought the whole thing out in my head. And I was like, that looks like it could be decent. Now see, this one right here is really bad. They put literally like a demonic skull creature on this one right here.
That's just
even
a Grim
worse than the one I
Reaper.
picked out. I don't like that one. I'm trying to like tone it down a little bit from the creepy.
But you like the Reaper in the other one.
Yeah, but it comes and goes. It comes and goes.
Well, I like this one. The Buzz Light. The Buzz
that
Lightyear
sucks.
patch. That's definitely a morale patch. Because I have heard about those, and they're all pretty funny. They're not like serious. They're funny though. This one's a cool one.
Also, by the way, we have rabbit hole like hell on this. We got to get some questions.
But I mean, it's a good rabbit hole though, right, folks? Like y'all are enjoying it, aren't you? Like I know I'm enjoying it. I don't know about like look at that one. Dude, there's so many ideas you could get from the
Oh,
Space
the
Force
cool.
guys.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Or the Cyber Wolf.
Oh, yeah. Geometric origami wolf.
Or this one.
Oh, yeah. Octo. The squid.
That's an octopus. But yeah, like yeah. Oh
Octo
man.
squid.
And I mean, whoa. I mean, just look at all these. I mean, they're actually pretty cool. But we do need to get to some questions, folks. We don't want to rabbit hole on this too long. Yes, Malia, yes. But with that, folks, well, we're on into some questions. What am I doing, Matthew? What do we got? Like.
All right. So with that, we are now jumping into our super chat questions. We do have super chats tonight, and also then getting to our live chat questions right after that. So jumping right into it, this one goes to Darcy48, who put in a $100 super chat. And thank you very much, Darcy, for the massive super chat on even a Sunday. And we do appreciate that. And Darcy said, thanks, guys, for keeping us informed.
And thank you so much for the massive support, Darcy, and helping us to stay on air so that way we can keep keeping people informed. We're never supposed to make a cent on Sundays, but for some reason YouTube set up a loophole a while ago to where we can get super chats on Sundays, and nevertheless, we're still greatly appreciative of that support, whether we're supposed to be getting it or not on Sunday, and we thank you massively for helping this channel to keep on running and enjoying it enough that you would want to support it and see it keep running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, someone said, don't embarrass Matt too much. Look, man, when I design like a crap design, I'm not shy of it. Like, that's why I was prefacing it when I showed that thing right there and told the enforcer to pull it up. I said, this thing's super early. Like, you would be surprised. Like, all the designs, we put out a lot of merch in the past, like over, mainly in 2024 is when we put the merch out. I came up with all those designs, except for a handful of them. A couple of them were made by viewers. And our flag design, by the way, was made by Pterosaur, who's a viewer as well. So some of them is not my designs, but then most of the other ones were all my designs. So I had to go through tons of reiterations of that stuff like that. I'm not a professional graphic designer. I do have a slight knack for it somewhat, but it takes a lot of reiterations to make something look good. Also, sometimes I got to get some assistance too, as I'm not a graphic designer, to do stuff like that. So that's part of the process. You start with a sucky design, and then you slowly make it actually look decent, and then hopefully look great after that. So it's a process. It's a very long process too. So jumping on to our next super chat, this one goes to Duncan VR, who puts in a 25, and thank you very much, Duncan, for that support as well. And he said, "Ba moo woof. What's happening, guys? No respect around here?"
Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Oh man, we sit and we do our analysis, and then people tell us that we don't know what we're talking about. Oh man. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well. And a big thanks to you for being here with us tonight and wanting to support this channel and help us to keep this thing running. And so a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Based Soda, who puts in a 25. And thank you very much, Based Soda, for that support. You might live in Utah, but we do appreciate that. And they said, did the atrocities in South Sudan end? Or is there just simply nobody reporting it this time around?
And I think if you speak of South Sudan, you're not speaking of the country South Sudan. I think you're speaking of Southern Sudan and the Sudanese Civil War. So I'm going to answer it based off of that assumption. And the massacres and the genocides are still ongoing from what we know. It's just that nobody really covers it because, truth be told, there isn't really a lot of people who have phones in Sudan to film anything for us to see. And then on top of that, all of the mainstream news agencies that usually would do the on-the-ground reporting on stuff like that, they generally don't anymore. So for that reason, we just don't get a lot of news out of Sudan, and that's also why it's kind of fallen back out of our news cycle again as well, is because we have very little, if anything, to talk about in terms of active developments that we know about that we can speak of on what's going on in Sudan. So I hope that does address that the best I can from what I know right now. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Base Soda once again. He threw in another $25 support. We appreciate that. They said, "What's happening up there in Estonia and Finland?"
Well, I mean, well, the Estonians gave a shoot-on-sight order, so if a Russian soldier or border guard walks across the border, they're technically supposed to shoot him. And then up in Finland, nothing really is going on up there, at least right now, that we can overtly say is going on. So if there anything is going on in Finland, we really don't know enough about it to be able to say what's going on. So I hope that does answer the question the best we can off of the information that we have. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Old Warrior Fella. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, as well. He said, "I watched the whole video about where the rebels entered that hospital. They were driven there seeking refuge to get away from the armed IRGC."
Oh, really? I actually didn't know that. That's interesting to hear. And I thank you for sharing that with us. And so with that, we're about to be moving on into the next one. But I just saw Old Warrior say, you already have a bird logo. That should be on the patch. And you're speaking about the LSA Eagle. And, you know, I would like to see LSA imagery, especially with the Eagle, included in a lot of stuff. Because
we already have the patch. Remember, we have a LSA Eagle patch.
We should put another one out. The same one, but do it again. Honestly, folks, we have to do an LSA flag run a second time. All of those are going to be non-autographed, though, because that's really the way we're going to have to work it. So all LSA flags non-autographed this time. So the first batch of 550 will be the only ones that probably ever will have been autographed before they were sent out. And then we could run the LSA flag patches again. But I think that we ought to include like LSA flag imagery and a whole bunch of stuff. Like most of our patches ought to have like an LSA eagle on it somewhere, because that is the official symbol of the LSA, and that is the flag of the LSA. So it's kind of like our version of like the eagle crest that we have here in America, in the United States. It's basically like the same thing. So we ought to see about like, you know, including it as like a little motif or something like that. You know, that'd be kind of cool. You know, that'd be kind of neat. I think I like that idea. What do you think about that, Matthew?
Honestly, it could be pretty good right there. It's, excuse me. I don't know what's got me coughing like the last 2 days. I've been coughing like a fiend. But you know, the catch is though, like I know people get really excited for that stuff like that. But sadly though, like if we do that, it's going to be like a couple of months down the road, because it takes a
I'm clearing it out to
okay.
make a patch.
That scared me. I looked up. I wasn't sure what I was looking at there for a minute. I was like, huh, interesting.
What the scoundrel?
Yeah, a little fella up there. But anyways. Let me get back to what I was saying and actually focus here. That caught me off guard. It got me scared that my heart rate went through the roof. But sadly, though, I know people get excited. They see like you know, all these cool designs and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, you know, it'll be cool and stuff like that. Sadly, though, it's months down the road. It takes a while to actually like finish something like that out to actually make it work for merch. Also, we got to find a new supplier too, because we can't do it this time. It simply overwhelmed us last time. It takes away too much effort from the stream to actually do the merch. So we got to find someone to help us out. I have somebody in mind that y'all might know. He's another YouTuber out there. He might be willing to help us with it, and we'll have to see if he's willing to help with the merch, because that would be pretty cool to do that.
Oh, real?
Yeah. I won't mention his name though, because I don't want to say something until it's you know, a done deal. But he's a well-known YouTuber. He does merch.
Oh, sick! Yo, that's amazing! Yo, let's see here. Let me change the background color on this, folks. I'm doing this in the middle of the stream on air, so that way we can try and like maybe get an idea here a little bit. Let me see. Let me shrink that down. I don't know how you did it, Matthew, earlier, but I'm just going to basically layer circles on top.
If you go to Canva, they have patch. If you punch in military patch, they have a basic one that is already pre-done, and you just simply modify it to what you want.
Oh, well, I'm going to do it the hardcore way. Because
man, it's going to take you all night to do it this way.
Oh, it's all right. I'll just do it while we're, you know, chit-chatting, you know, like it's no big deal. It's no big deal to me. It's no sweat. I could do this and talk.
Well, in the meantime, while you're working on that for probably a long time here, we're moving on to our next super chat, which goes to Tom Axman, who puts in a 10.
Hey!
Thank you very much, Tom, for that support. He said, what's the U.S. going to do if Delcy Rodriguez provides good democracy, but contracts out to other countries, the oil production, updating, and sales?
I think that we wouldn't accept that because it sounds like we're generally trying to get control of the oil refineries within the country. And I also think that, to be entirely honest, the Venezuelan government that exists right there is not going to be entirely reliable on into the future. And so, for that reason, we're probably going to see that they won't be around that much longer. And I don't really think they're willing to negotiate with the U.S. government, to be entirely frank. But I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Rafael Saya, and he said, enforcer is right. If tons of drugs are passing through the border, who knows what else could be possibly passing through there as well, and it's better to improve the Coast Guard and the borderline and LLT, LSA.
And I would completely agree with that, and I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you for agreeing with me right there. I'm very happy to hear that folks generally agree with what I got to say on that, because I don't really know how going to war with an endless amount of countries is going to fix it when we could just close our border, considering that that's the one thing we have direct control over and can directly influence. So with that, I hope that is addressed to the best I can, and big thanks to you for agreeing with me on that one. And with that, it's time for us to move on and into the next one.
And this one goes to Based Soda once again, who puts in a 10. They said, what if there's a star on the hat and then put the flag stripe on the cape and centered the guy? And he's talking about that creep that I put on my patch, apparently. I guess you could. Really, though, I can't use that guy for the final patch, though. Like, that's just for the mock-up, for the concept purposes. I can't use that guy specifically. I got to create my own version of that. So I might be able to possibly do that. I want to make the guy look mysterious, but not like a sicko. I think the one that's on the patch now kind of looks like a sicko a little bit. I'm not sure if I want it to look like that. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that generally it was not a bad patch idea. It's just that we want to use something kind of different. Me personally, I'm a big fan of the Atlas dude. Like, I think that would look pretty cool. But other people might not think that. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm in a small group on the Atlas dude thing, but I would do the Atlas dude because he's cool, and he also kind of leans exactly into kind of what we do, which is just knowing things and generally talking about it, and also globally, because he's holding up the globe and basically all of the portrayals of Atlas, so that kind of also lines up as well. So I hope that does address that the best I can as I try and fly an LSA flag here, folks, to put an LSA Eagle up on this thing. And to be entirely honest with y'all, folks, I'm probably going to abandon this because I'm trying to find an Atlas, and like I can't really find an Atlas right now to kind of cobble this whole thing together and get her done. So this is becoming a lot more difficult than originally anticipated. So
I told you.
Well, I mean, hell, man, I was trying to give it a shot, man. I was just trying to do what I was going to do, man. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Alberto Rodriguez, who put in a 5. He said, Israel has such a grip on the U.S., and that's pretty much what he said.
Well, I'll just leave it at that. but big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I don't want to facilitate a bad habit, but one thing I can do is I can do this. Give me a second here. Let me go grab something. I'm grabbing it on my second screen real quick. Let's see here. Grabbing it. Just for context, what I'm doing right now is I'm going to provide the Enforcer a little bit of a savior here. And I'm going to send him a copy of what I did, so that way he can sort of put something together real quick. So that way, while we're finishing up our questions here, he can show us what he was talking about. But let's see here. Share. Let's see here. Duplicate. And stall for me for just a second.
All right, and we're stalling, everyone. Whoop, whoop, pull up, sync rate. Pull up, whoop, 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 pull up, sync rate, pull up. Anyways, enough of stalling. It's time for us to get to Stalin. And Joseph Stalin was one bastard. I'll tell you all that. The guy was a terrible guy. He ended up conducting an endless amount of what can only be described as genocide.
Here you go.
Oh, there we go. Enough of stalling and Stalin. It's time for us to get on into what we've got. Let's click it. Coin. All right, so let's see here. We'll get rid of the red stars, along with the USSR and all that business.
In the meantime, though, while you're working on that, I'm going to move on to our next one here, which goes to Marc-Andre Burnett, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Mark, for that $5 support. You did not leave a comment, but we do appreciate that very, very much. We also have a 5 from JamFan, and he said, an occupation of Venezuela will be Iraq with flying IEDs. And the incident in North Korea was leaked to show that these things can go wrong, and we got lucky.
And I would have to say, interesting assessment there. And I would have to say, maybe one day we'll see. Wait a minute. I was actually supposed to allow that right there. Paste. Oh, sorry. Let me do it the right way. But I hope I have addressed that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to XJTAC, who puts in a 5, and thank you very much, XJTAC, for that support. He said, this is not a new concept. Let's see here. Obama had a plan very similar, and everything the same, just refined, just lined up that the current president got the cards. Big picture is Middle East. I don't know about that. I'm not sure if they were ever planning on a conquest of South America. I don't recall anything about that. And I was actually following the whole situation back then, too. So I would have to disagree with that right there. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to generally disagree with that as well, because that just wouldn't really line up with things. Like, a lot of plans were explored. Like, technically FDR explored through the Rainbow War plans a hypothetical war with Britain, but that doesn't mean that we ever intended on fighting the British and defeating them in battle. Planning something and then executing it are two entirely different things. A lot of presidents plan all sorts of stuff and then it never happens, and then it's unclassified later, and then people go, look at what the U.S. government was going to do, and it's like, it was what they do. They just plan stuff like that. But beyond that, I hope that does address it the best I can. I generally have to disagree, though. But I do thank you for helping this channel to keep running and throwing in your opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know, also, by the way, what we're doing right now, sort of talking about the geopolitics, and also you doing this on the screen at the same time, that's what all these, like, true clickbaiters do. Like, on the short videos, they'll play, like, a GTA 5 video of, like, a car smashing, like, the buildings while they're talking about, like, Venezuela getting bombed or something like that, just so that way people keep interested and keep their, like, brain working on what's happening on the screen. We're doing the same thing, but we're not doing it intentionally, though. But moving into our next super chat here, this one goes to Chef Danny B, and he puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Chef, for that support. He said, good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here, and I actually have 2 days off in a row today and tomorrow. That never happens. Like ever, and I'm used to maybe having a day off. LTLSA, and thanks for the great work, gents.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying our work, and thank you for supporting it, Danny B. And it's a great thing to know that you're here with us today and enjoying the stream once again on a second day off, which is, I will have to admit, incredibly rare for you. And we're happy to have you here right now. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best that we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Mark Andre Burnett, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Mark, for that support. And he said, day 1411 in LSA.
Hey, and it is day 1411. You know, it's crazy to think that we've been on air for that long. And I got to say that it's a wonderful thing to know that we're still on air, and we're still doing this 1,411 days in. And so with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are about to be on to the next one, but I think I found an atlas that kind of could sit in for a minute and kind of represent what we're looking for. So let me get it really quickly and drag it over here, and then let me do the background remover on it so we can get the stylized portions. Damn, it did the wrong one.
Just press the edit button and invert the colors.
Let's see here. Edit. Let's see. Let's see here.
Invert. That button right there next to color.
Oh, there we are. So,
see, I'm an amateur graphic designer.
Look at that. Genius. Let me just try and figure out how to do this somewhat well to get the point across. Let's see. The LCU is going to have to go. We'll have to figure out something to do with that here in a second, but we put this in there. This is not at all the way I was thinking it was supposed to look, but this is the best I can do, just having to, like, grab some stock off the internet. Something kind of like that, a little bit.
That looks pretty decent. Looks pretty decent.
What do y'all think, folks? I can't really do a whole lot of work on this because usually this will take a lot of time off air, and I'm trying to do this really quickly on air and rush to do it. But let me see here. Let me get rid of that. Let me put that here and then get rid of that, and then I'll have to copy and paste this. But let me do this and then move this down to here. Let's see here. Sorry, folks. I'm trying to actually get all the little pieces put together, and we'll just put it right there. That's close enough, and then boom, and then we'll move that over here and put it.
Where's the Mason symbol gonna go?
Oh yeah, right. Let me go get that.
Hey.
Oh, hold up. Let me make sure to do one so that way we can get it in, because of course every secret society has to let everyone know. There we are, and then
Oh my god.
hold
That's
up.
bad. That's bad.
Boom. There we go, and then we just let's see.
Oh dear.
Why
They're the deep state. It's the media, the deep state.
they're lying to you? They don't want you to know that they're deep state, but they put an Easter egg in their damn patch to let you know. Oh god. But I mean, that's kind of what I would want to do. Like if I did a patch, it would be like a black and white one. It would look like that. Like it would have the little LSA eagles. Like maybe even stylized a little bit different, so that way it's more square shaped instead of rectangular to make it fit. So the feathers and the wings would be shaped, or the leaf spring would be shaped a little bit differently and be a lot more curved upwards. But that definitely could do, at least in my opinion. As a
You really have to discriminate against my Phantom man. Can you at least have a part?
I'm not gonna lie, dude. Phantom dude, kind of like
He's gotta go.
he's got it. Well, hold up, man. Let me go get what he reminded me of. Really quickly. Let me put that up here on Canva. Let's see here. Oh, dude, this would be a great one. This would be incredible. Oh my goodness. Hold up, dude. I gotta go get it. I gotta go get the right one. Hang tight. Man, can you stall for me really quickly?
Yes, I'll stall for a second. I saw Old Warrior fellow say, honestly, I'm not a fan of round patches. I'll be honest, I'm not either. If it was a finalized version, I'd probably make it rectangular because I like those better. I like it to be able to go like on a Velcro patch segment, and the circular ones just don't cut it. So I did that just as a mock-up, so probably rectangular if we ever did it for real.
So this is what your little dude reminded me of, was the Neighborhood Watch, man. Like, I was like, dude, it's the Neighborhood Watch guy. I was like, yo.
I've never seen a burglar that looks like that.
Dude, also, man, what burglar has a jaw like that? Like, this guy's sitting there, hey, you go home, mama. It's like, bro, what the hell's up with your lower jaw?
Oh, man, this guy doesn't even need bolt cutters. He'll just chew through with that jaw.
Bro, this guy, man, he goes home and he snacks on sheet metal.
He's like, give me nails.
Man, he sits there, he goes,
hey, when I get home, I ate some nails. Well, I ate milk.
That sound is exactly how I'd imagine if somebody had a jacked up jaw. They would sound just like that.
Bro, you know how I'm doing it, man? I'm sticking my tongue out over my teeth and like pushing my lower lip out to literally make it sound like a big jaw.
So then he talk like this, and he go home and eat some nails while I eat milk.
It's like, yo, it's like, bro, he said,
hey, are you going to eat that sheet metal?
But anyways, folks,
that's crazy work.
All jokes aside, this is how I would do the patch. Man, also, man, I didn't get to see the chat. Actually, I wasn't able to see their input. Did they like that or did they not?
Looks like they like mine a lot better.
Really?
No, I'm just joking.
Oh,
no, not really. They like the Atlas man a lot. They like this one.
I mean, the Atlas, like honestly though, we could do like a million different designs, man. We could come up, like, funnily enough, folks, we could just come up with fictitious units of the LSA, you know, like brigades, you know, detachments, something like that, and we could just come up with a million different patch designs and just endlessly do them. And y'all could just collect, you know, unit patches of the LSA. It's not like they're real units, but we could do that just so that way we could come up with a million different patches and have a reason to do it. But we will see, folks. We will see. I mean, like, also. It actually does look like people like the Atlas patch. Honestly, though, man, I think like the Boogeyman deal was a good idea. I just think that we need to come up with a way that it's stylized to where it looked interesting. We got to have something like, there's nothing like the catch, like with these patches like this, there has to be something mysterious or ominous to it. Like there has to be, like, for the effect. The Atlas man looks cool, but there's nothing really like mysterious about it. It's just straightforward. It's some guy holding the earth. That's pretty, honestly, that might be a little narcissistic. We're not really holding the earth. Well, no, it's like Atlas is like the source of like the information. Like that's what it's supposed to represent. Like anything.
Oh, you think you're Atlas? Is that the idea?
No, but I mean, it's just something cool. Like, do you think you're the Boogeyman? Like, do you think?
Well, now that you mentioned it.
Oh, not that guy though. Not that guy you had in the patch though. Like he's diddying it up. Like, we're not doing that. Like, but, you know, I mean, like, honestly, like, you know, like the Atlas man. I mean, I like the Atlas man. Like, the Atlas man's kind of cool. But we could do loads of different units, folks, and we could come up with ones that aren't even intelligence related. You know, we could come up with, like, you know, motorized infantry, mechanized infantry, armor. You know, we could come up with artillery, anything really. Like, the sky would be the limit at that point. But we could just come up with tons of these and make them as merch releases.
Also, Donald Manor has the best idea of the night. He said, "How about just your channel profile picture, the guy in the gas mask on the thing?" Honestly, that would be the easiest one to do, to be perfectly honest. And I could simply put like a very like faded out like gray smoke effect behind it, and that would be a done product right there.
Honestly, I would probably like. I don't mean to make everything difficult, but I kind of wanted to be like stylized with like very little colors. It's like the logo looks cool as the logo, but as a patch, I probably want that to be like grayscaled or something else done to it to make it look cool for a patch. Because I think just doing that and like smacking one in a patch, I don't really know if that looked good.
Maybe so. I wish we had someone who actually knew what they were doing with graphic design, like somebody that did it. The problem is, though, people that are like graphic designers and stuff, they charge a lot of money. And also, like, we've gotten really good ideas from the audience as well. But we have to take the ideas that we get from the audience and we actually have to turn that into a real product. That's the problem. So there's usually a problem jumping it from idea to product. There's a problem with that, and that's where a real graphic designer has to come into play, where they can actually make it into something that's able to be embroidered onto a real patch, and that starts getting complicated. So if we can't afford to hire a graphic designer, obviously, and also Fiverr, that we've tried doing that from time to time, getting a freelancer to do it, and they don't quite meet the mark most of the time when it comes to doing stuff like this. So it's usually something that we have to do ourselves and sort of just like work on it for months until we finally make it work.
And the problem is, folks, is that I'm like, for me personally, I'm a humongous stickler when it comes to anything that deals with audio or visual design. So if it doesn't look good, or it doesn't sound good, I just throw it out. Like it has to be like peak, or it just doesn't make the cut. Like this wouldn't make the cut. This patch right here would not make the cut because it's not exactly what I'm thinking, and it's not exactly what I'm looking for. It looks okay, but I would never sell this. Like it would have to be better looking. Like the premise is here, but it would have to be way better looking. That's me personally though. Like I'm like very heavy into stuff has to look stylized, it has to look stylish. Like we had a million different LSA flag designs. Both Matthew and me though were absolutely blown away by the one that Torosaur made, and that's why the LSA Eagle is what it is now. And that's why it stuck. But we went through, I think before that, at least 80 or 90 different designs for the LSA flag that got rejected before this one came up, and this one became it instantly. So you know, like it's got to be something that will stand the test of time, and people can look at like 5 years from now after like all of the hype's died down and be like, yeah, that's pretty cool. It actually hits. It looks really good. Or like, for example,
Do you know how many unfinished designs I have? Like I have like a lot of stuff that people have never seen before, like in our like assets folder for the merch, that were like failed designs. We've thrown a lot of designs out that we've worked on over the years and that have never seen the light of day. Some people might actually like some of them, but the problem is though it doesn't appeal to a wide range of people, so we just threw it out.
You know, there's actually some thumbnails, folks, that I've made, like a decent amount of them that'll be made and then they're just completely scratched. Some of them actually got scratched so badly they just got flat out deleted, so I can't even show them. Because sometimes before a show, I'll do a whole thumbnail and then like either I get rid of it and then redo one, or I show it to Matthew and he's like, that's not really good. And I'm like, yeah, it's not really good either. And then it gets thrown out right then and there and then completely redone. So there's actually a design and style points is incredibly important, especially when we're trying to like present it to other folks or let people see it as like a public thing. It has to look really good. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. Also, you know, something else, Mandy, that would be kind of a cool patch idea is like the shield shape. That would be a really cool patch idea.
That would be cool, I think.
Yeah. But with that, folks, it's time for us to get on to a couple of more questions. We have to get to more. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so this one goes to Carbonize. You put in a $10 super chat, and thank you very much, Carbonize, for that support. They said none other than, I'll send you guys an email to help with the merch and designs for free. And also, can you do a shout out to my brother Airman Stoltzfus at Dyes Air Force Base?
Yeah, and a big shout out to Airman Stoltzfus at Dyes Air Force Base near Abilene, Texas, which is home to the B-1 Lancers. There they are. How cool is that? And I got to say, a big thanks to you for support, and big thanks to you for the offer. We thank you for that, and we'll look into them, and we'll have a think group put together, a think tank, and we'll have a congressional survey and research done. But I do thank you massively for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And also, Matthew, speaking of the B-1 Lancer, how's that Concorde coming along?
Oh, you talking about the Lego?
Yeah.
I haven't worked on it ever since I showed you the last picture of it. That's as far as it's gotten.
Dang it, y'all! Matthew has been building the Lego Concorde, and it was looking so cool when he sent me the last picture. Like the wing section is done from stem to stern, and it looked so cool. I think he's moving. I think he's moving on now in like the build process to the forward end of the fuselage, the droop snoot, and then I think after that he's moving on towards the rear of the jet, towards the tail section and also the vertical stabilizer. So I can't wait to see it when it's done. It actually looks really cool even right now. And I gotta say, folks, Lego has come a long way. The B-1 Lancer reminded me of the Concorde, man, because of the same, like, some similar designs in between the two, although they're really not that similar. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And a big thanks to you once again for support and the offer. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, Hokey Redneck said, "Does the nose depress?" And it does. I hadn't got to that point yet on the Lego kit, but yeah, the nose actually goes down on the model, and also the landing gear work and everything. It's a pretty complex little Lego kit, but it's pretty cool though. But the whole escalations thing of the last few days derailed the entire kit building process for me. I've been working around the clock, getting very little sleep, and so is the Enforcer ever since things have started going berserk. But I think this is it right here, actually.
Yeah, that's the one. This is the Lego Concorde. And man, they took a great picture of that thing. This is the official Lego picture of it. This one, like, it's really cool looking. It's really neat. And this is how big it actually is when it's finally done. So these things are humongous, and the landing gear works, and the droop snoot works. And when I say the droop snoot, some people are like, "What is a droop snoot?" It's the nose cone on the Concorde. They were actually specially designed to where at low speeds, at lower altitudes, the pilots would have absolutely no visibility if the nose was stationary, pointing forwards like an arrow. So they actually designed the entire front nose section of the Concorde to where it could actually droop down to a far lower angle, so the pilots could have a better field of view when they're taxiing on the runway or when they're attempting to land. So that is a pretty cool little feature about the Concorde. The Concorde was so cool. I hate that they retired them. They retired them not because they were dangerous. They retired them because they were expensive. And then when one crashed, they had the perfect justification to retire them. It makes business sense.
Oh, it ate up. It ate up enough fuel on the runway. I think it could I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was enough to like power a real flight somewhere just on the runway alone.
Yeah, like, it's crazy about that. They actually had to high priority this thing on the ground. Once the engine spooled up, they basically had to stop every other aircraft, even that was ahead of it, in line at runways, so that way it could get on the runway first and take off, so that way it didn't burn all of its fuel just waiting. It's really crazy, honestly, the Concorde and how it worked. It was truly an amazing feat of engineering. People who say that they're going to make a new one of these, they're lying. Just to let you all know.
No, man. No, they're not lying. Boom Supersonic is making really good progress on it.
Well, I mean, who's going to buy it? I mean, some no commercial aviation.
I think they got purchase orders. Let's see here.
By who?
Let's see here. Let's see. So on their website, it says here, allegedly, it says in June 2021, United became the first U.S. airline to sign an aircraft purchase agreement with Boom Supersonic.
In 2021, and it's 2026, and they still haven't fulfilled the contract yet?
Yeah, but I mean, still, this is a serious project, man. This is a big deal. Like, they got to make sure it's safe. Like, I'd rather them take their time on it than put out something that was not too safe.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like United did that?
Allegedly, and also it looks like maybe American might have too. I'm reading the AI overview, so take it with a grain of salt. But it looks like there's several airlines which have allegedly placed purchase orders.
I wouldn't know why, because everyone who ran them, which was British Airways and Air France, they both got rid of theirs because they cost so much money to run. Like, the amount of fuel that it burns is so much per even the exorbitant price of a Concorde ticket that they never could make financial sense to fly the plane. And every single time that it flew, even with flights at 100% capacity, the plane would lose money every flight from the cost of operations versus the ticket prices. So I don't know why
Show them real quick. Show them a picture of the thing. Also, by the way, I'm just got on their website right now. It looks like American Airlines, United, and Japan Airlines. They've announced strategic partnerships with Boom Supersonic, allegedly speaking. So it looks like that is the case. So I mean, there is real interest from airlines about this whole thing, which I can understand why. If you're building a viable, Concorde, I mean, who wouldn't be interested in that?
this is the thing.
I think that's one of them. I think they might have a couple different models possible. Let me see here. They have the Overture Boomless Symphony XB1. I think the Overture is like their flagship one, I think.
This is as far as they've gotten.
That's the XB1. That's a different one.
Let's see. That's another conceptual illustration of it. So this thing is nowhere close to getting off the ground anytime soon, it seems, because they're still like in the very small like modeling and prototyping phase with these. So I don't even think they're close to having one of these being built anytime soon.
Let's see here. It's saying that it looks like they're slated to carry passengers in 2029. So let's see. They're targeting a London to New York flight in 3 hours. Now you gotta admit that's appealing. Like if that actually works, I mean that's incredible if that actually works. Hopefully the tickets aren't crazy expensive. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but you know they got to get FAA certification, all that kind of stuff like that, to my knowledge. So that's probably what's holding them up a little bit. But they're targeting a rollout for 2027, first flight of the Overture 2028, and then commercial entries sometime around 2029.
You know, I think one of the big problems, if I remember it correctly, with the Concorde was that it could really hardly ever go supersonic because you can't go supersonic over like territorial waters or national airspace. It's illegal, like in both Britain and in the United States, and also in France as well. So the Concorde would have to take off from like New York, say. And like if we model a flight path, folks, from say like John F. Kennedy or JFK out here to Heathrow, I'll show you like a straight line flight path from one runway to the other. This is the actual arc that would be seen on the globe to make the most efficient and shortest flight path possible, which is the most economical. So if that well, say if this thing took off from JFK, it's flying over territorial waters, or it's flying over Canada and the U.S. most of that way, for about let's see here, 1,200 miles. So it's having to fly that entire way with that extreme sort of fuel consumption for those engines, and they don't even get to use the power of the thing because they're having to fly subsonic for the first 1,000 miles, and then for about 1,200 miles in between from Newfoundland to Ireland, they actually get to ramp the thing up to full speed, and then right after that they have to hit the speed brakes again and then slow it down to subsonic speeds over Ireland and Britain. So then that's just wildly fuel inefficient at that point for the kind of engines and the power that it has, and the fact that they can't really use it for only a 1,200 mile stretch of that whole nearly 3,500 mile long flight.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about it that I have personally, mainly about what the ticket price is going to be for it. But the fact that they have backing by real airlines shows that apparently they believe in it. So that's a good sign. So maybe they'll have it, maybe not. But I'm rooting for them, honestly. If it's affordable, I mean, that could be a big revolution. Because you remember back when the first wide bodies went into service, they were kind of a little skeptical about those even back in the day. And look at where they're at now.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I don't know. I just feel like the fuel efficiency is going to be the killer of this program in the long run. Like even if they do accept the orders and they take the aircraft, I think after a while these companies are going to retire this thing pretty quickly, like a lot of people are doing with the A380, because the A380 is just woefully inefficient for the kind of cost that it takes to operate the thing versus what people get from the tickets. So I think that might probably be the killer of a program like this. Me personally, that's what I think, but I don't know, maybe it will work. But anyways, with that, folks, it is time for us to get on to our third to last question of the night.
First of all, though, we got to get the rest of our super chats. We have two more of those. But a big shout out to KB Kuntash, by the way. Threw in a $100 donation to the fundraiser, that is.
Hey!
And a huge shout out to KB Kuntash for helping to bring us up to almost $6,800 raised, which is fantastic work right there. We do appreciate that. And we also have a $5 super chat from Swazo, who said, "Thanks, gents. I appreciate the LSA, and thanks for keeping us informed with more important stuff than just those normal politics."
And thank you so much for the support and enjoying our show. We're very happy of that, and we thank you greatly for enjoying it and supporting it so that we can keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $2 support from Tim Shower. And Tim said, VAW116 Turtles, great E2 patch.
And the VA what patch?
VAW116 Turtles.
Let's see. Turtles. Let's take a look. Oh. I can't show any of these on air.
What is it?
I can't describe a couple of them, but one of them is a turtle holding a cane. Well, it's a resting hook actually. But the phrase underneath it is something that I could not show on air. So, very interesting. I do thank you for supporting and sharing that with us and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is actually going to be jumping us right into our live chat questions. But first of all, we had our Morse code decoders tonight. Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabelle Garbo, as well as her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Kobe Sire, and Brian Blairstown. They said, the Morse says, Iran is just on the cusp of completely collapsing, and let's hope they can do it in LLT, LSA.
And and that's the sound of money. Y'all hit that down on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate y'all greatly for getting that correct time and time again. It truly is an incredible and amazing thing to see the Leaf Spring Armory Signal Corps getting that correct all the time. So a humongous congrats to y'all once again for getting that correct. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one from the live chat is going to go to Oscar Meyer Russian, who said, what do you think the odds are of the U.S. airdropping small arms to the protesters in Iran?
It's likely. I think, honestly, though, what they would probably do is that they wouldn't just drop them, like, right on top of them. What they'd probably do is that they'd have their contacts go out to some location in the desert where a helicopter or an aircraft might drop them off, and then they'll load them up inside of some van, say, and then drive them into a city and then hand them out like candy. So that way it doesn't become incredibly obvious that we're doing it, but we still be doing it nonetheless. So I think that that's a pretty likely sort of an option, at least in my opinion, but it would be done a lot more covertly than overt. At least if it was done properly to where we could have plausible deniability. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Hokey Redneck. He said, question for you, Matt, for the question segment. Excuse me. And he said, do you think we will dissenter other countries? And if so, what order? And I would say if you're talking about the plans to basically conquer South America and possibly Mexico, I would say most likely yes. The problem is, though, it's hard to predict what they're going to do and the order they're going to do it. So it's kind of hard to answer the question because of that. But if they try to take on all of these at once, which I don't think they will or can, to be perfectly honest, and we shouldn't, I would say Mexico is going to be the most troublesome one because we can't destabilize Mexico or dissenter Mexico, because if we do that, we're disrupting a major trade partner, the #1 trade partner of the United States. So if we do that, we're basically disrupting ourselves. We're basically stepping on our own toes at that point by messing with Mexico. So I'll be honest with you, Hokie, I have a hard time even answering the question because I'm not even sure really what the U.S. is even trying to do at this point. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say I'm having a hard time answering it as well because I'll be honest, I have no clue what we're doing, and threatening that many countries with some form of a military invasion or a government overthrow or something else along those lines in a singular day is just absolutely crazy. That's never happened before, ever, as a matter of fact, in U.S. history. And sometimes it's not great to be the first person to do something, and in that particular situation, it's not. So I wouldn't really know what order we're going in, and on top of that, the administration's entirely unpredictable, because just earlier last year, they were saying that they were the peace president, and now apparently it's the presidency of war, because now we're just going to get into any war that we can think of, even including allies. So, I don't know. And then I say that, folks, and someone's about to go, you just hate the president. It's like, no, I actually have sense. Like, last year, all you people who were saying that, like, just to address them before they even say it, all you people were bitching about the war in Ukraine and how people shouldn't be dying. The president just sent down Delta Force and wiped out like 90 security detail guys, killed outright, and then probably a couple of dozen more in Venezuela. And unnecessary killing is wrong to these people when it's Ukraine and Russia and a nation's actually defending itself from an invasion. But when we want to go nab a guy just because, so that way we can get some oil companies back in Venezuela, then it's totally fine. In fact, it's encouraged. And that makes no sense to me. Like, there's got to be some consistency. You either are for the war in Ukraine, and you're generally for us protecting our interest even through armed means, or you're not. You can't have both of them at the same time, depending on what's convenient to you. So I hope that addresses that before people even bring it up. And I also have to say, Hoagie Rennick, it's very hard to answer that question because it's very unpredictable at the moment.
It really is. Also, by the way, there's the rumor also going around the street. You know, I got to tell about the rumors from time to time. Y'all know how the opposition leader in Venezuela suddenly got just sidelined out of the blue. The U.S. officials came out and said that she's too weak to lead, and she's really not the choice pick to lead Venezuela. Some people are speculating that's because she accepted the Nobel Peace Prize, and that was apparently a ultimate sin. That's the rumor on the street. So I'll be honest, I didn't really understand why they sidelined her the way they did, but she seemed to be the one who was being favored by the United States up until recently. And now all of a sudden, just out of the blue for no apparent reason, now all of a sudden she's too weak in the eyes of the United States to lead the country. So I'm not sure if maybe it's that petty that they're sidelining her like that, or if maybe there's a strategic reason behind it. Not totally sure, but it certainly seems a bit strange, to say the least.
Yeah, I would have to say. Also, someone just said people were dying in the U.S. because of Maduro. No, they weren't. Get your facts straight, man. Like that's just not even. That doesn't even make sense. The fentanyl being shipped into America is shipped in by two cartels in Mexico. That would be the Sinaloa cartel and the other one that sounds like an alphabet organization. Those are the two cartels that deal entirely in fentanyl and ship that in the United States. Venezuela deals in cocaine, just raw cocaine like Colombia does. Neither of those countries are involved in the fentanyl trade. They're involved in raw cocaine. So saying that people in America were dying from the fentanyl trade about a country that isn't involved in the fentanyl trade, it's just raw cocaine, that doesn't really line up too much. So, you know, like, that's once again a really tough sale to make. I mean, yeah, the guy was involved most likely with Tren de Aragua and other sort of nefarious things in Venezuela and was a terrible leader. That we can all be agreed on. But trying to make it sound like fentanyl was being produced in Venezuela when literally even the Drug Enforcement Agency of the U.S. says that it isn't, that's a really big stretch. So with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so with that, who is the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that is going to go to AF Kaplan, who said, in both of your opinions, if the United States did take over Greenland, what would be the most likely response from Denmark, NATO, and the EU? And AF Kaplan, if they're abiding by the charter, they should invoke Article 5. That's probably what will happen. I'm not sure if maybe the U.S. will have enough influence to prevent that from happening. That's a question. But, I mean, it would be an attack upon... is Greenland in NATO, first of all? Are they in NATO? Not specifically. It's Denmark's in NATO, right?
Yeah, but it's technically a territory of Denmark, along with Iceland, so both of them have NATO protection.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking so. So technically, though, Greenland itself is not in NATO, but Denmark is in NATO, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was like something like that. So they extend the NATO protection to Greenland under Denmark's authority. So just to make that perfectly clear, apparently that's the way it works. But I think Article 5 would be the case because that would be the United States attacking Greenland, which is in effect Denmark, and they're trying to annex Danish territory. So it's an attack upon a NATO ally by a NATO ally. First of all, that shouldn't even be a situation because we're all supposed to be allies. Allies don't attack each other. So there's not even a protocol to deal with that because it's not supposed to even be a possibility. That's why it's so stupid the USA would even threaten to do something like that because it's not even supposed to happen. So if they did it, maybe Article 5 most likely would be invoked, and then the NATO alliance would have to fight the United States out of Greenland at that point. And then at that point, we've created a shit show, and the United States is a joke at that point. So hopefully we back off of that stupid shenanigans that we're trying right there. It's stupidity. It doesn't even describe it. It's insanity. It's really dumb. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree with that. It's absolutely stupid. And I saw someone say we want to protect the shipping lanes. We already do. They're already a part of NATO, and Canada is as well. So we already control the shipping lanes in this area because they're a part of our military alliance. So it doesn't make any difference whether we own Greenland or not, and that's why we ought to not do it. Because if it's making no difference, why would we do that? We're only damaging the U.S. in foreign policy with other countries. That just doesn't really add up at all. There's nothing but risk and no reward to doing that sort of an action. Our position now is unchanged whether we have Greenland as a direct territory or not. So I would have to say I just don't really get it. And also, I gotta say it's just really goofy. Like, there's no other way to say it. It's absolutely goofy. It's stupid. It makes no sense. And generally, I don't really know how in the world NATO would react. I'd assume that they'd activate Article 5. because that would make the most sense, but at the same time, they might not. So who's to say? I wouldn't really know. But with that, I hope that has addressed that the best I can. And with that, folks, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I do have to thank all of y'all massively for watching the stream and enjoying it tonight. Right now, we actually still have 11,000 people here, which is one hell of a large group of people to have about 3.5 hours into a show. And I thank y'all all for sticking with us and enjoying the show over the course of the night. If y'all have, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 48 hours of news from around the world. And if there is enough news to make a short war video tomorrow, I will be the one making that short war video. I also have to give a humongous shout out to everyone who has supported the fundraiser tonight. Matthew, how high up is the fundraiser?
We're currently sitting at $6,800 raised.
Dang, that is unbelievable. That's 2.5 times more than that. The amount that we were supposed to fundraise tonight by the goal. That is truly amazing and incredible, and a humongous shout out to everyone in the Leaf Spring Army who has supported this fundraiser tonight and is continuing to help out the folks that we cover the news on each and every single day. And so with that, a big thanks to all of y'all once again for watching, and we will see you all either tomorrow for the short war video or on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 48 hours of news from around the world. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava. Long live the Leaf Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, a huge shout out to the 210,000 people that have joined us tonight. That's a massive crowd in here tonight. We appreciate every single one of you for choosing us as your news source. And we will see you all on Tuesday night. We are off on Mondays. That's the one day we take off a week to try to recuperate for the next week of streaming. So join us all on Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next Nightly War News stream. And also, maybe there will be a short war video out tomorrow midday if there is enough news to cover. But a huge shout out to the huge success on the fundraiser tonight and the massive, whopping, overwhelming amount that was raised, well above the goal. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And we will see you all on the next one. And with that, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.